One short view topic for all 32 teams. A news and notes show. That's what we're doing today on The Long View. I'm Ben Gretch. You can find the Stealing Signals newsletter at bengretch.substack.com. With me, as always, is Jakob Sanderson. You can find the Thinking About Thinking newsletter at jakobsanderson.substack.com. And we're back. Jacob, before we jump in, apologies to everyone who had issues with the audio on the last episode. Still getting some stuff dialed in. Our levels were off on the last episode. We heard from a number of people. Apologies about that. I was coming in hot. I've also taken the liberty of ordering a new mic. I've had the same mic for over a decade, Jacob, since I got it. It was like the thing to get back in the day when I started podcasting in 2016. Technology has changed a little bit in 10 years. So hopefully we'll get me a little bit of a better mic, and that is going to help some of the peaking. We're new on this podcast. We're getting some feedback. I should have done that a long time ago anyway. Obviously do a lot of different podcasting, but we will get that stuff sorted out. Thanks for sticking with us as we work through that stuff. But yeah, how you doing, Jacob?
I'm doing good. Super excited. First off, I wanted to echo your sort of apology to people about those levels, but I also want to offer an apology to you specifically because I feel like you had to deal with people being like, "Oh, Ben's yelling," when really I have new equipment myself, and I was coming in too quiet, so I'm making you seem like you're yelling all the time. But I'm confident it'll be better today on the levels front. I'm confident, especially to get the mic equipment. We're going to be only getting better and better. So super excited to do the show today. And otherwise, super appreciative of all the really positive feedback we got to on the last episode and the last concept. It's been really fun, and excited to keep plunging forward.
Yeah. The feedback's been great. We're really appreciating that. We talked about potentially doing one of our draft streams that are going to be behind the paywall over at Patreon. We did not get around to that. We may do that after we record this free episode. So if you are interested in that and you're thinking about subscribing to the paywall shows that we've talked about, there's definitely going to be some soon. The season's going to start, and at some point we have to draft some teams. So that will be coming at some point. And then, today we're not going to really do like a long view topic at the back end. Last episode we had our fun topic, and then the short view went 2 hours. There's only more information, and the whole idea about the short view was to be able to react to this stuff, to hit on a lot of different topics, etc. Well, right now we're at a time in the middle of August where, we're recording this on Thursday afternoon. The first week one of preseason, the first real preseason games are coming tonight. Correct. We already had the Hall of Fame game last week, but there's going to be games played sort of starting, I think, as we're going to be recording this, but we're going to be going over camp news. We're not going to have reactions to the first preseason games, but everything that's happened in the last week. You've put together an incredible document here, something from every team, and we're going to go through and just kind of talk through stuff and treat it as like an extra long short view, like we like to do at the top of the show, a not-so-short view show, as you called it.
Yeah, the not-so-short view, indeed. So let's kick it off. I'm going to go kind of division by division. I'm going to lay out what I got, and you pick and choose, as usual, whatever you find most interesting. So starting off the AFC East, we'll start with the New England Patriots. There was a beat writer, Mike Giardi. I'm going to name other non-John Shipley beat writers a lot in this short view. That's a commitment of mine. We're getting some publicity on the larger community.
Before we get going, did you see Justin Herzig's work on how louder camps have led to
I did.
ADP rises and quieter? So any Longview listener who did not see this, Justin Herzig did some phenomenal work using AI to figure this out and to classify loud camps versus quieter camps in terms of like the I think the prevalence of beat reports, and then also the like the sentiment, like how extreme the sentiment is, whether it's, and some of it was like a couple camps were like particularly negative, but some of it was, particularly positive, but like how firm the reports are, how as opposed to just like quietly articulating what they're seeing, but not like putting flowery language behind it. I don't know if I'm describing this particularly well, but Herzig's finding, or the AI's finding that he was sharing, was that in the past several years, especially in the later rounds, I think it was like round 8 to 18 or something, the biggest jumps have tended to come from louder camps, which is just such a funny encapsulation of this concept that like I've been kind of joking about with the whole Shipley thing, which is just like, I mean, if the beats know their audience and they know what they're saying and they have these reports, we will react as a fantasy community to it.
We sure
like
will.
I tweeted that like this is the confirmation bias from Herzig's thing was hitting me hard, because it's basically what I've been talking about every time we've talked about the Jags.
Yeah, totally. So here's, hopefully, we're going to get to all 32 teams today. So we're going to spread the wealth. We're not going to just be focusing on the Jaguars. So maybe we'll help guard against some of the great stuff that Herzig was talking about. So starting off with the Patriots, this is beat reporter Mike Giardi. He said, this is a direct quote, "I haven't seen much improvement with his vision and patience regarding Trevion Henderson." Noted that Stevenson was likely to remain the lead back between the tackles and on passing downs. Henderson, of course, would have a role. We've noticed Henderson's ADP has been slipping. He started Best Ball Mania drafts like squarely at the 4-5 turn. He's now going more to the mid or even late 5th round. I've seen him peak into the 6th. So that is converging. We talked a lot about Henderson earlier on. We've also seen rookie Eli Raridan, who was shout out to me, I guess, just like one of my favorite players in the class, is getting more first-team reps than Hunter Henry. I first thought this was like a classic nothing burger because Henry's like an older player. They just extended him actually as well, 2 years, $8 million per. But then I noticed that Henry's also getting reps with the 2s. So it's not like they just weren't playing Henry much at all, and that's why Raridan was getting all these extra reps. They actually were playing both of them with the 1s and the 2s and rotating them on and off. So I thought that was pretty notable how much work Raridan's getting, continues to get great reviews. This is an interesting one. Omar Cooper has had a quieter camp, and Rich Cimini said he could potentially be leapfrogged by Isaiah Williams, who's their returner early on in the season. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Breece Hall, in more better news, I guess, or more fantasy-friendly news, Connor Hughes wrote that Breece Hall looks like they plan on featuring him more prominently as their lead back this season after, this summer last year, talk about a negative camp beat. It was all about how they were going to use this 3-headed monster and constantly get Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen involved. And then the Bills, Benjamin Solak, he was at camp. He was noting that they may throw more this year, even though the offensive coordinator is now the head coach. With Sean McDermott out, they might be able to throw more, or might want to throw more, might throw more down the field. Specifically, they were talking up using DJ Moore in that intermediate and downfield role. And then Miami, a lot of the talk in Miami has been about rookie Caleb Douglas. He was their first of 3 drafted rookie receivers, was not really a guy that was, I would say, beloved in analytical circles. But he's been having a really strong camp, super athletic guy. And if you care at all about the unofficial depth charts, I tend to not, but I do take it as notable when a rookie is actually listed already as a starter immediately on the old unofficial camp depth chart. Caleb Douglas was listed as one of their starting receivers there. So that's the AFC East. Anything from there that you find notable or like the opposite of notable, and let's dive in.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's us, so I'm going to wind up with a long conversation about Caleb Douglas with you. I'll say the thing that I don't find super notable, I mean, shout out to Ben Solak, who does incredible work, but just, I mean, a note that the Bills could throw more based on a camp observation. The more downfield thing is pretty interesting, but that's not the kind of, we often talk about this in the fantasy space in terms of how we want to apply different lessons. I don't think he's thinking of it as a fantasy lesson. I think it's easy to latch onto something like that, but in terms of like trying to actually project them to throw more, that's not really a thing that I would respond to. The camp observations, that could be very much, I mean, it could have been related to discussions he was having or whatever, but that's very much like what packages they're working on, all sorts of things like that. We do have, a lot of actual hard evidence with Joe Brady calling plays the last few years. So anyway, that it could be, there could be smoke there, but it's not the kind of camp report that I put a ton of weight on. We got to kind of, be careful with the different things that we're actually weighting in the fantasy community. The Omar Cooper being leapfrogged by Isaiah Williams one is sort of just funny because Isaiah Williams is, like you said, a return man. Like I don't know if I'm really putting a lot of weight on that one either, but it's not great for Omar Cooper. I mean, what's interesting about Omar Cooper is all the other receivers in the later rounds right now, like around him, are getting steamed up. Like Dejon Stribling, like Pat Bryant's getting shot up. And Denzel Boston, Trey Harris was there. I was just seeing a Harbaugh quote that like he's right there with the other two, Lad McConkey and QJ, and obviously Cyrus Allen is going off, and all these young receivers late. There's a lot of options. So Omar Cooper being a first-round pick, who we already were like, hey, it's kind of weird how late this first-round pick is going. Now he's like doesn't sound as fun as like the other guys. So anyway, he's a tricky one. But no, I want to talk about all these, but those are the ones I was less interested in. Caleb Douglas, let's talk about him for a sec. You said that people didn't really like his profile. I want to ask about that. I'm not as in the weeds with the rookies as you. But I kind of liked him. When I went through the prospect stuff, I knew that Chris Bell, the one that's coming off the ACL tear, was a bigger favorite of their 2 third-round picks. And then who's the 5th rounder? He's a smaller slot guy.
Yeah, Kevin Coleman Jr., and he was a slot guy, and he actually had some people who were pretty big fans of him.
People really liked him. But he's a different type of role, and people really like Bell, but Bell's coming off an ACL. But Douglas is the one that got drafted the earliest, and I expected to see like a pretty bad profile. It's not great. He didn't earn a lot of like target volume, but it's a really high ADOT profile. He had over 1,200 air yards both of the last couple years. Like, did have over 800 actual yards. The like yards per out run isn't fantastic, but this is also the kind of profile that, I mean, deep efficiency is the hardest thing to sustain and is going to be dependent on quarterback and those things. It's the kind of profile that can be a little bit masked by the offense he was in college and those things. It's not that he like didn't earn targets. Like, he got a lot of volume. He did have deep production. He just didn't have as much as you'd like to see. But in terms of like a good fit for Malik Willis, who's probably going to be a lower passing volume guy, but a vertical passer when he does throw, he holds the ball. Really high sack rates, really high scramble rates, even back into college. We've talked about this with him. This is not going to be an interesting offense, but I don't know. I guess I didn't hate the profile, and if something ever did pop up in this offense, I guess I was thinking that it might have been a longer-term rookie development thing in the second half of the year. What are you thinking about Douglas, and what do you think about him as a prospect?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing with Douglas is, there was a lot of talk. We've talked about Stribling before. There was a lot of talk about him going higher than anticipated, and he did. But, like, I was definitely expecting him to get drafted. I wasn't even shocked that he got drafted on day 2. 33rd overall was certainly a surprise. Caleb Douglas was, I think, not even just in fantasy circles, but like in NFL circles, a pretty shocking pick when it happened. For instance, JJ Zacharyson, I think has like everyone that's invited to the combine or has like a certain level of, I can't remember exactly the cutoffs he uses, so maybe I'm gonna talk wrong. But he like wasn't even in the guide prior to the draft. Like he wasn't like on the radar. He was a guy that was in a lot of mock drafts, like not even in them or expected to go late day 3. So it was a pretty big reach. I can I'm happily will admit that like this was not a guy that was on my radar until I saw his name got picked up by the Dolphins. And that's not dispositive of anything. There's certainly guys that aren't on my radar that become good. I looked into the profile a little bit after the draft. I mean, it's not great. Like the peak yards per team pass attempt season is 1.83 on a per game basis. That comes in his senior year. Pretty concerning to see like a 4-year player never get over 2. It's not horrendous. Like there's not literally nothing on the profile. The junior and the senior season both. He's playing in a Power 5 conference on a good team, and he is like a productive college player is I guess the way I would put it, in the sense of like it's not producing at the level that typically you would expect to see from an NFL stud, but he was like a real college player. So yeah, I would be surprised if this is a guy who is someone we're ever excited to draft in like real rounds in fantasy. I would not be that surprised if in this specific situation where there's like no one on this receiver room at all, the veterans are really brutal profiles, The other rookies have question marks. One of them probably won't even play for half the season. Like, this is totally a profile where they clearly like this guy. They drafted him first out of the 3 rookies. He's got a lot of athletic juice. He's showing out in camp. Like, wouldn't surprise me if he was kind of playable this year, especially in best ball formats. And maybe, how that translates beyond this year, I don't know. But I certainly added him into my best ball rankings. Like, and I've been clicking him as a 16, 17, 18th round pick. I mean, this is a spot where we've talked about before how bearish we are on how much anyone can really produce in the context of the Dolphins offense. But at the cost of free, even if the number 1 receiver on this offense gets 80 targets, like, that's 80 targets. That's pretty playable.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it in the context of like Dante Thornton last year, which people were, a guy people were drafting. And
yeah, his profile's better than that. I mean, yeah, because Dante Thornton didn't even play. Like, he was like, and I'm a Tennessee fan, so I was pretty familiar with his work. And like, he was like a rotational 4th receiver, basically, for the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah, I was gonna say his career high was in his final season was 26 receptions, and he had 17 as a high prior to that. He had 65 total in college across 4 years. Like, this is a different profile than that. Caleb Douglas
Thornton was basically running the role that like Tutu Atwell ran for a couple of years with the Rams, where he was like a guy that would run like 30 to 40% of the routes per game, and they would like scheme him up some deep shots. But like, he wasn't like a real part of the down to down process. Caleb Douglas was.
In college, you're saying, for Thornton? Or you're talking about last year?
Yeah, I'm saying in college, he basically had the role that Tutu Atwell had with the Rams. Like, he was a situational deep threat. Yeah.
And then in the pros, it was like, oh, he's going to play a lot. He's going to run a lot of routes. And so people were drafting him. I was like, this is not actually a player. And he had, a pretty poor rookie season. And anyway, the Raiders draft weird people at the receiver position. Like, the Jack Bash pick, all of it was very odd. They drafted 3 receivers. Anyway, Caleb Douglas, the pros on him, like 6'3.5", 206 pounds, 4'3'9", 10.6 broad, like a legit broad jump, a legit 40-yard dash with some actual size. And then, to the point about like the different, so that, like, that's why I'm comparing him to Thornton, is like, it's a deep threat. It's a really high ADOT profile every year of his college career. His lowest ADOT was like 12.8. He had, early in his career, it was over 16.5. He's super, super high the first couple years. He's just a low route deep threat, and that was where at Florida, and then Caleb Douglas, then he transfers to Texas Tech.
Yeah, he did very little at Florida, was much more involved at Texas Tech, for sure.
Yeah, just a pure deep threat. You can see the ADOT shift, and then it's like, okay, he's actually getting some targets underneath. But yeah, he has over 90 targets both years. I don't have his profile pulled right up, but it's not like Thornton's where there's no receptions. Yeah, he had 54 catches last year, 60 the year prior. So over the 2 years in Texas where he's playing a little bit of a different role, not just this pure deep threat role like he was at Florida, he actually catches, not a massive number of balls, but some passes, 114 catches, receptions over the 2 years and 800 plus yards, like I said. So anyway, to your point, so what you helped me there with the understanding that he was that far off the map, that he wasn't even on the rookie guides and stuff, though. That's pretty interesting. The Breece Hall one is super exciting to me. When I was going through the projections, I guess I didn't realize how good Breece Hall's been so far to thus far in his career. I do know that his receiving has been fading since early career stuff, and a big part of that was having Justin Fields last year. He only caught 36 passes last year. The 2 years prior, 76, 57. The big thing I was emphasizing in last year was that, he had gone from 76 in 2023, his first big year, down to 57 catches, and I wasn't even projecting 57 targets for 2025 in the Fields offense. He winds up with 48 targets, 36 catches, so, that was obviously an accurate projection. Having said that, he had another 1,400-yard season. And the thing I guess I didn't realize about Breece Hall was, so his rookie year, he only played 7 games. We all know he had the big knee injury the rookie season. He was having a great start to his rookie season. He had 681 yards from scrimmage in 7 games, including the game he left for, early to injury. So he's pacing for a ton there. Almost 100 yards per game. But in the 3 years since, he's been over 1,350 yards all 3 years as well. Breece Hall on a per game basis so far in his career, in 56 games, he has over 5,000 scrimmage yards. He's close to 100 scrimmage yards per game, whatever that is, 85 or 90 or something. It's a high number for a guy who's been in such a bad offense. The other side of it that I didn't really realize, he has not had a season with more than 5 rushing TDs. We know the Jets offense is terrible, but like the bad offenses also negate the ability to have 1,350-yard seasons, right? So he's had over 1,350 yards 3 years in a row with the Jets and he's played like banged up at times. He's been able to produce despite that, put up a ton of yardage despite that, and yet he has not been able to score really any touchdowns. He's given up some of the goal line work at times, but man, 5 TDs max in terms of rushing touchdowns. Now he's had multiple seasons with 3 and 4 receiving TDs where he's chipped in more receiving touchdowns volume. So that second and third season he had 9 and 8 total touchdowns. That's still a small number, but it's better. Last year he only had 5 TDs on over 1,400 yards. That can't sustain to me. So anyway, I'm getting more and more excited about Hall. Where are you at with Hall?
I wrote him up pretty favorably. I think I have him ranked among running backs, like exactly where he goes among running backs, but I do view a massive tier break after him. Like he's to me clearly the last running back before we enter the dead zone, and I think he's on the draftable side of it. He's a guy where, like, if I start, let's say you start with a receiver, like you're drafting in that 3 or 4 spot, you start with a Jamar Chase or Puka Nacua, you come back in round 2, you take Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, perhaps. Like that would be a plan that I'm really excited about, is then getting Brees as my RB1 in that scenario. He's probably also like the last running back where if I start with 1 running back through 2, I'm pumped to take him as my RB2. Whereas if he's off the board, I'm probably saying, no, I'm going to punt RB2 for a little bit. I wrote him up favorably. I like him this year. I'll note that there was like a lot of discussion last year about his poor efficiency metrics in 2024. I was really bullish on especially the talent aspect of Hall going into last year, just saying like, this is a guy who was a absolutely fantastic prospect, who was elite on a advanced metric basis in his rookie season, the same in his second season, right after after he got a little bit healthier, and was doing that like on bad environments, bad teams, while dealing with injury, partial rookie season. Like, we should be giving this guy a lot of grace for 1 bad year. It would have been really shocking to me if that was just who he is. Last year, playing again on one of the worst offenses in the league, he was 10th among running backs in the NFL last year in missed tackles forced per attempt, top 5 in explosive run rate, and even had, as always, had really, really strong receiving numbers across the board. He has strong receiving numbers every single year of his NFL career. So I think this is like one of the better talent profiles in the NFL at the running back position, and I think a pretty underrated one. I don't think people, like in league circles, even like when you see those like anonymous polls and stuff, the executive polls, they never seem to rate Breece Hall as highly as like I think he should be thought of. It seemed last year to me that Aaron Glenn at times didn't seem to like have a full understanding of how good he was, especially in the offseason, the way that they talked about him. So I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic that they paid him, that they had the confidence, to bring him back, make him a big part of their plans. They're talking about him more favorably this year. Yeah, I think he's a very strong pick.
When you say the last of a tier, do you have Love ahead of him?
I do. I have Love.
I'm hearing in some of the like seasonal,
one slot ahead of him. But I don't think it's crazy to prefer Hall. I actually got that question from a subscriber like 2 hours ago, and it was one that was percolating because Love I do have higher. We actually we drafted the main event yesterday on Ship Chasing with Ron Stewart, and we had that exact call. So we started Bowers, it's FFPC, so tight end premium. For anyone who's not familiar, we start Bowers at the 104. We drafted, I think, A.J. Brown, and then we had that choice of Hall versus Love as our RB1. We went Love. And I think you prefer Hall, right?
I do, yeah. I have Hall. And I'm hearing from some of the like more seasonal sites and stuff from subscribers and people talking to me that Love's been sliding in some of these places for people that do a lot of drafts. I'm curious kind of why he is. But yeah, I heard from somebody just a little bit ago that was like had a decision point where they had Love at the 310 and like Hall was gone. And so I was kind of like, I think in some of the places Hall's starting to flip him. Obviously I understand the underdog market is like one of the things about the underdog market, I think it's the best ADP you can get most of the offseason because there's the most volume and all that stuff, but it also has a lot of the same people drafting. When you get to this point in the offseason, there's an anchoring effect on Underdog where everyone who's drafting there knows where everyone goes on Underdog, and people sometimes don't move very much, especially in these like micro changes, like within other people. It's like Love's ahead of Hall, so Love's got to stay ahead of Hall. But there'll be more rapid movement, I think, in places like FFPC and some of the redraft places that are pretty sharp and are getting real volume now. So my opinion would be that you maybe could get some better ADP movement data information from some of those places relative to the best ball landscape right now, because you're getting, I think, a more robust wisdom of the crowds as well, more people into the atmosphere and into the marketplace that aren't strictly best ball players, etc. But anyway, I'm curious about the Hall Love thing and how that's gonna play out. I agree with you that that's the end of like the start of the running back dead zone. I feel like Love is gonna potentially wind up being the last one. I do have Hall ahead of Love right now personally. I also have Hall ahead of multiple other running backs that go ahead of him that I am sort of fading. I don't have them behind the dead zone, but yeah, I think Breece Hall's a target. I think he's a good target. I have him RB10. Like, I think he's I'm definitely more bullish on him than you in terms of you being into him, but saying you have him ranked kind of where he goes. I have him higher than that, and I find myself winding up on the clock where Hall is a real consideration, and I'm pretty into it, man. I'm pretty into it. I'm not like super excited about being in on the Jets, but this is a team that has a lot more talent than past Jets teams. I'm not excited about Frank Reich. I got that from some subscribers like telling me to pump the brakes on the Jets. That's not the only thing that's relevant. Like, the offensive coordinator does matter, the offense does matter, but it's not it is not. And I understand the ways that some of the stuff went in Carolina, for example. There was also some weird stuff there where like the owner David Tepper had to have weekly meetings with him and was like wanting to like give him ideas about they had to do RPOs, and there was these weird reports that was just not a fit. The Carolina stuff didn't go well. Reich from the Colts years. From the Colts years, I thought Reich was decent enough, like capable of running an offense that was functional. So I'm not like entirely out on an entire offense just because of an uninspiring offensive coordinator hire, even though like I have written this offseason, like I think scheme is more important than ever and a lot of these different things that it does concern me. It absolutely concerns me, but the Jets have the potential for a really good offensive line or an improved offensive line. They got really good young tackles that are both first-round picks in the last few years. They've added a lot of talent, obviously, we talked about Omar Cooper, but just having Adonai Mitchell and Omar Cooper as like the number 2 and 3, and even if Isaiah Williams is playing ahead of Cooper, you add Sadiq as well. Mason Taylor led this team in targets and receptions last year, which, I mean, Garrett Wilson played half the year and Adonai Mitchell played half the year, so that's part of the reason why. But Mason Taylor was effective. He had like 65 targets, 50-something catches, whatever it was, as a rookie. And then you add Sadiq, you can do some of the multi-tight end stuff. People have always liked Jeremy Ruckert too. Like, I think this team's a little deeper than people realize. So I'm not like, it's not an offense that I want to like entirely avoid. I think you have to be really confident that they're awful. Like they do have in look ahead lines a bottom 3 point projection, but you got to be really confident they're awful to be out on Hall and Garrett Wilson. And I'm finding myself like, relative to their talent, I think they're both really pretty clearly underpriced, and so I'm finding myself pretty in. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I share your general positivity about the New York Jets, which alarms me because I've like gotten burned by this Jets team. It feels like kind of since they drafted Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, where I've been more optimistic about the New York Jets than I should have been. Yeah, and I'm trying to suppress that PTSD to try to keep it open by this year. I do have both of them ranked ahead of ADP for what it's worth, so I think I'm suppressing it reasonably. I agree with you more than I don't. If I was to point out the slight areas of devil's advocate of like why I don't have Hall maybe quite as high as you do, it would be one is Frank Reich, but more than Frank Reich, it's Aaron Glenn. And I understand he doesn't coach the offense or call the offense, but there's an element of like non-competitiveness that really irked me last year in how he approached the team, where it's not even just about what plays are being called. It's like there were games where they were behind by 3 touchdowns in the third quarter and they're punting on a 4th and 2. And it's like, oh, well then just go to the locker room then. Like if that's how you're going to approach this. Because like, what are we doing here? You know, we're trailing by 3 touchdowns, and it seems like sometimes the goal last year was let's just lose respectably instead of let's like try to maximize our chances of scoring points and winning and developing. And that's the kind of stuff where I don't know if that's OC dependent, right? Like that to me is like a head coach culture issue. And maybe it's fixable. Maybe this year he knows he's on the hot seat, and so he'll be more willing to take big swings, I hope. But that scares me when you have a losing team. Like, as a contrary, and this is like I think a point in Love's favor, is Mike LaFleur, when he was OC for the Jets. Obviously, we've never seen him as a head coach. He was a guy where in the weeks especially that they had Joe Flacco and Mike White, and who was like Josh Johnson played a little bit. They had, I think in those 2 years, I had the stat in my article. I don't have it in front of me right now. I want to say it was 13 combined games that Flacco or White or Johnson played in. They averaged like 43 pass attempts in those games. They lost almost all of them, but they were losing very competitively. They were like, we're going to go down with a fight here, and we're going to throw, and we're going to try to be aggressive. That we're going to throw the backs a lot. Like we're going to do the things that teams do in comeback mode. That encourages me from a fantasy perspective. If you're betting on a team that Vegas expects to be bad, like, are we going to get garbage time production, or are we going to get like 1, 2, 3 Cancun and we ran 43 plays today, and went into the locker room? So that's one thing that concerns me. And then I am encouraged by the additions that they've made in skill position talent. I've been making this argument all year that I think the Jets have a far better environment in terms of their skill players, their offensive line, than people think because of the name on the helmet. But I do wonder if a little bit of that might curtail Breece Hall's receiving upside. I just made the case like 5 minutes ago. I think he's one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. So I think he's going to earn a lot of it himself. But we have never really seen him with anyone of note other than Garrett Wilson for a prolonged period of time. And so, if they want to get Omar Cooper, Kenyon Sadiq involved in the offense, like those are yak specialist guys. Do they eat up some of the screen work and stuff that we've typically seen Breece Hall? I could see that. And we'll see whether they keep doing like the interchange of him and Braylon Allen at the goal line. It hasn't been as much of a positive offseason for Braylon Allen as it has in past years. So maybe that's over with, but it's a lingering concern for me.
The Aaron Glenn points are notable. I've written unfavorably about him as well. That's all fair. I was going to say, now I forgot what I was going to say, but who cares? We've talked way too long about the Jets. Let's go to Travion Henderson. You haven't seen much improvement with his vision and patience. Not great. I mean, not great to hear that. I do think Henderson's going to start slow. Stevenson's going to start as the lead back. That's the way the season ended. That's what's gonna be something that comes up early in the season. I was saying it to somebody, I can't remember who, but there's going to be a lot of Ramondre Stevenson victory laps about week 3. It's going to be a social media thing. If you're a big Travion Henderson backer, just stay off social media around. Yeah,
that's
week
the
3.
reason why I've told dynasty managers, like, look, if you want to buy Travion Henderson, just buy him at week 4. Like, I bet you're not going to like the first 2 weeks.
I was doing some writing today, and I ended up reading some stuff that I had written about Travion Henderson around week 15 last year after he had a 30-point game coming out of their bye. His stretch prior to that, when Stevenson was banged up for part of it, he went in PPR scoring here. He went 12.7 points, 28, 32.3, 11.1, 11.6, and then 30.1. That was a 6-week stretch where he had double figures every week. He had 28 plus 3 times. That's when he was hitting on all the long runs and everything. And then he got concussed early in week 16. He did end up playing week 17. I think I wrote that he didn't play week 17. Anyway, he ended up coming back week 17 and played a little week 18. By that point, Stevenson had really taken a handle on the backfield and was playing really well. And but I think I had talked elsewhere that Stevenson hadn't done much up to that point. It doesn't matter. The point, this is all very descriptive of what happened in 2025, and it's sort of rehashing. My point is just that there was a period in time when Henderson was productive last year, even though it doesn't feel like it. There was a point in time when the team was prioritizing Henderson touches, even though he couldn't pass block, even though he had issues with vision, all of that stuff, they were prioritizing him. He wasn't playing more snaps than Stevenson, but he was getting more touches. His rate of touches per snap was meaningfully higher during this stretch. I'm not saying that's where we're at now because Stevenson took over that last month of the regular season and then the whole postseason by a mile. Having said that, week 1 of 2026 is not going to be the same as week 17 of 2026, and I think this is a backfield that could evolve throughout the season. Trayvon Henderson's still a very good prospect. He was a very good prospect with real draft capital that had breakaway speed and breakaway big play ability as one of his big selling points, and he was the only running back in the league who had 4 carries of 50-plus yards last year. He showed that as a rookie in addition to all of his mistakes. They're not going away from him. They don't have an RB3 presence. I'm not in on Trayvon. I continue to move him down, but this idea that like he can't get better or he can't improve is too ingrained right now, I think, in the market. I think there's plenty of room for him to grow. Basically, he's expensive though. Like the market is making that like a challenging bet.
Yeah, this can be pretty short because I think I have like a 99.9% agreement rate with kind of exactly how you viewed it, like not just the end conclusion, but really the way you laid it out. And yeah, Henderson has been a guy that I felt that the sentiment on has been too negative, but that the price, unfortunately, has not matched the sentiment. So it's like I get this really negative discourse online about him, and then I see that, I'm like, great, I can't wait to draft against that negativity, against that certainty. And then often you go and look at the price tag, and it's like, wait, the guy that everyone's making fun of for being a backup is not priced as a backup. Well, that's annoying. Like if you're gonna be annoying on social media all day, I should at least be able to draft this guy in round 7. But you can't. But you can get him more at the end of round 5, early round 6 now, which I think is a positive. We're seeing that tighten. So I agree, especially if we can get like preseason usage that's bearish for him. I would like to get opportunities to legitimately buy low on him. I still have some optimism there. Anyone else that you want to get in on the AFC East before we move on? Yeah.
Well, I was gonna have you move on here in a quick sec. The Hall thing that I remembered I was gonna say is you were talking about how they weren't competitive last year, and I was just gonna reiterate. He still had a 1,400-yard season in that environment. If there is it's that point of like anchoring to expectation that they're a bottom 3 environment. Like they can't get much worse than what is already priced in. They can't get much worse than they were last year. He had a 1,400-yard season. Like what does Breece Hall look like in an offense? To your point about like it could hurt his passing game if Omar Cooper or Kenyon Sadiq are contributors. Those guys are contributors. The offense is probably better though. Like, it's probably helpful for him as a runner and some different things. What does Breece Hall look like in a more functional Jets offense? That's something we have not seen. And he's still been this productive in these non-competitive Jets teams. And then the other one you had mentioned just was the Raritan thing. You love Raritan and deserve a lot of credit for being early on that and right on that. And I agree with you that this is all very bullish for Raritan. I would caution anyone, and I don't think you were saying this, but caution anyone from thinking that Hunter Henry is going to go away. Hunter Henry is going to be 32. They did just pay him. But also I would emphasize that he had 87 targets last year, was second on the team in all major receiving categories behind Diggs by a lot. Like no one else was even really close to him. The year prior before they had Diggs, he led the team in all major receiving categories. He had 97 targets. He's been like Drake May's favorite target for 2 years now. Like Drake May actually, and Hunter Henry, I'm a kind of a proponent of this like QB receiver thing. Like I think Jacoby Brissett and Michael Wilson have a thing going on, for example, and it's like making it hard for me to understand what to do with Michael Wilson. I genuinely think especially when you have a young quarterback like May, that there is a little bit of a connection there. So I think Raritan's like playing with the ones is interesting. I pretty much don't buy at all that there's any path to him passing him. I think they're trying to get Raritan that work because Henry's already like a known. The fact that Henry's getting additional reps with the twos is like, okay, we want to get him work to some degree. But like the idea that this rotation means that Hunter Henry's not going to be the starting tight end, which I don't think you were saying. I think it speaks favorably about Raritan still. I just want to emphasize. But I just think would be bonkers. I
I think that the most likely outcome is that Hunter Henry runs back more or less the same role he had last year, and that Raritan essentially steps into last year's vacated Austin Hooper role, which is a real role. He actually played a decent amount. Wasn't really a fantasy viable role, but he was on the field a lot. I'm not quite as certain. Like, Hunter Henry is an older player, bit of a frail blocker. I get to do my favorite thing and talk about tight end run blocking. One of the reasons I like Raritan a lot, why I thought he was an underrated profile, was that he had strong yards per out run his last season of college, really only the last season of college because he tore his ACL twice in the seasons previous to that. But less strong overall production. One of the reasons for that is that he was held into pass block like over 30% of the time in this weird Notre Dame offense that continually asked him to do that. And yet he was able to win pass blocking assignments like one-on-one versus Mansour Delane, Ruben Bain in the Miami game, other top edge rushers. Like, this is a guy I think who, honestly, this season could be a better blocking option than Hunter Henry. I do think that has potential to win him some snaps over Hunter Henry. I don't think it has potential to make Raritan an every week starter. I wouldn't be surprised if it made Hunter Henry, like, if it hurt him a little bit, if the route rate went down from, I don't know what it was offhand last year. I would guess around 75 to 80%. I wouldn't be shocked if it went into more 55, 60. Wouldn't be shocked doesn't mean I think it's like the most likely outcome. The obvious corollary to this would be like the Fannin and Njoku. I like Raritan. I don't think he's like the level of receiving threat that Harold Fannin is. I'm not expecting Hunter Henry to be fully David Njoku'd. But I don't know. I'll hold a little bit more of a candle out for it than maybe you will. I think Raritan's a pretty legit player.
No, I don't think you're wrong about the Raritan thing, but yeah, I just would emphasize they just gave him over $7 million in new money like this week. So
yeah,
that's it.
I think he's clearly he's not going to go away. He's not going to like not play. Yeah. All right. The the AFC North. We'll start with the Bengals. Joe Goodberry, beat reporter for the Cincinnati Bengals, was talking about how they plan to put even more on Chase Brown's workload, how he's impressed them over the course of the year. They discussed how they're going to design more plays around him and use him everywhere, like they do with Jamar Chase. He also used the phrase, hey, you're going to play 99% of the snaps, kind of like imitating what the coaching staff has been saying to Chase Brown this year. So that's good. We would love him to play 99% of the snaps. Steelers, this is probably an early point for Ben. We talked about this guy a couple weeks ago. Jeremy Bernard, been working primarily with the second team and was apparently struggling with some playbook issues. That's per Ben Solak. Solak also noted that despite the switch in offensive coordinator, he expected them, based on his conversations while there, to maintain more of a 12 personnel identity, to maintain a run-heavy approach. He noted that kind of exactly what you said, which is like, hey, they're working on installs today. Maybe this is just like a randomly heavy personnel day. He said that he is cautious of that, but noted in other conversations, it felt like it continued to support that conclusion. Cleveland Browns, reportedly Deshaun Watson is considered the favorite to start week one. That was a Rappaport report. I'll note beat writer Zach Jackson said that he and Shedeur have been similar in drills, but the Watson's been performing a bit better in the quote-unquote move the ball periods. Denzel Boston, we talked about last week, having a baller camp, has already claimed the starting X receiver role, and Casey Concepcion also seeing a ton of first-team reps. I don't have anything much new on Baltimore other than just Jacoby Lane is like, I don't know, apparently Randy Moss. It seems like every single week, every single day, there's like 2 new camps of him skying into the air and making a ridiculous catch. So that's the AFC North outlook. Anything strike you from there?
Yeah, I mean, the Chase Brown stuff, obviously, all the rookie receiver stuff is interesting too, but the Chase Brown stuff is fascinating. I moved him up a spot. I'm trying to figure out, because Kenneth Walker's getting a really positive buzz right now. I'm trying to figure out how high to be on Chase Brown. I think that's where he belongs, is right there with Kenneth Walker, and they're good picks in sort of the 1-2 range to me. Brown's not the profile of all of the other running backs that go around him. Like, I was really high on Brown relative to the market, especially after his rookie year when people were like, this is a day 3 back who barely touched the ball in all his rookie year. And I was like, no. And the big thing people said is that he couldn't do what he's done, which is be a workhorse. And I remember emphasizing that offseason that actually he's an absolutely a workhorse from his time in Illinois. And like, sending a tweet was like a screenshot of his game log and being like, look at how much volume this guy got at Illinois in the Big Ten, against all these really good teams, like basically carrying a bad Big Ten offense against, good defenses in cold weather in the Midwest. And people were talking about Chase Brown like he's this lightweight third down back, and he's proven to be able to hold up to a lot of different stuff. But again, he is a day 3 back. He's very fast. He's extremely fast. So I'm pretty in on him. The big thing about him after that rookie year was that he had a really fast timed speed. I think it was the fastest ball carrier speed, but he only had like 30 touches, and it was like one reception where he got loose, and people were like, the only reason he's being drafted this high is because he got loose on this one play. And it was like, no, it's that and the fact that he was a workhorse in college. Like, there's a real running back profile here. So anyway, the fact that he could play that much, the fact that this is going to be one of the more fun offenses to be in on. They're going to score points. They're also going to do it sort of the old-fashioned way. They're not, they use tight ends. They use a lot of different tight ends, but they're not going to be one of these offenses that's going to be highly rotational. Like, I actually think one of the things I wrote about in my piece today about the 2026 meta is, like, I think there's going to be some teams, and we're not really ready for it probably as a community, where like the third and fourth weapons are just not fantasy viable the way that we talk about like the Broncos, because they're doing too much rotational stuff and the routes aren't consolidated, and that's what we're going to see with these sub packages and things. There's going to be some teams that do different stuff. I don't know exactly who those teams may be necessarily, but there are clear risk factors or teams that are there. The Bengals are not one of those risky teams. Like, the Bengals are one of these offenses, when you draft a guy, you know what you're getting. Problem is there's basically 3 dudes to draft, Chase and Higgins and him, but I'd
say not a problem. I'd say that's a benefit is that there's 3 dudes to draft and there's a bunch of other guys who are just on the field. I mean, to that point, now I completely forget who this quote was from. It might have been Goodberry, but one of the Bengals reporters or writers had talked to someone on the team, and they were basically framing it as Chase Brown has earned the right to be a guy that we make sure we have plays for in the practice, in the game plan every single week, like we do with Jamar, like we do with T, where we say this is a guy that we have featured plays for, that we want to get the ball into their hands, and that's how they look at it in the course of a week, is this kind of players not plays approach. It's exciting for Brown. I've moved him up steadily kind of throughout the summer. I have him above Barkley. I think you have Barkley pretty far down your rankings, but I have him above Barkley. Now, I have him above Hampton in best ball. I still prefer Hampton in redraft, but I'm questioning that.
I just flipped that talking to Siegel yesterday. I've been at the
convinced.
I've been at the same thing. I have Walker 7, Brown 8, Hampton 9. I mentioned Hall 10. I have Barkley at 11, so he's quite a ways down, like you said, from sort of where he goes. But that Hampton Brown thing was something I labored on for like 3 days too. So I was just saying, I
labored
made that
for
flip.
a while. I came to a conclusion, and now I'm not even sure I believe in that conclusion. I also have breaking news. You said there's preseason games right now. I just talked about how everybody was sitting around watching the Steelers saying Jeremy Bernard sucks. The Steelers have had 1 drive so far in the preseason. He's got 3 catches, 45 yards.
There you go. Jeremy Bernard,
now,
superstar.
That's from Mason Rudolph, obviously.
Working with the second team still, like you said in the news and notes.
And Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf are not playing there. I think they're dealing with minor injuries, but, he's supposedly in a battle with Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson's playing, and he's just getting mogged by Jeremy Bernard down the field.
Yeah, Jeremy Bernard, that's great for him. I have an issue with the full season ceiling. This one is one where I feel pretty confident about that whole point I just made about like the Broncos and sub packages and routes not consolidating. It's really hard for me to see a path for Bernard to get enough routes as a rookie to be fantasy relevant, because he's got 2 clear veterans ahead of him. They're going to play in 2 receiver sets, and you have Darnell Washington on this offense with Pat Freiermuth. They're going to play 12 personnel a decent amount. They're going to have 2 tight ends out there, and then they're going to have – there's basically no path to him playing in 2 receiver sets. He's a slot receiver, but he's also like – he's mogged by Metcalf and Pittman, right? Like – the only way he plays is in 11 personnel. They're still going to run some 11 personnel, like obviously, but it's going to be tough for him, I think. The route share is going to be tough for him.
Yeah, no disagreement on he's never passing up Metcalf or Pittman barring injury. I've been more on the side of they will run more 11 than what people think based on Mike McCarthy's history. But growing less confident in that based on some of the recent reporting and stuff. I guess what I would say is that if Jeremy is really, really good, then I think that they can just like not play a ton of 12 personnel, like then they can get their best players on the field. But I agree that that's not a given by any stretch. I'm not really worried about him being behind Roman Wilson. Like if he's behind Roman Wilson, then he stinks. But like then he stinks. Like I don't. Like Roman Wilson.
Are you buying the
immovable obstacle?
Are you buying the Jacoby Lane stuff?
To a point. I mean, and certainly he to a point for sure. He's been moving up my rankings. Like again, not a player I like loved in the pre-draft process. But there's some interesting elements there. Like scored about a gazillion touchdowns in year 2. So like a classic guy of like where some of the yards per team pass attempt stuff and the dominator stuff like really diverge based on which you lean on from year 2. And played against really strong teammate competition. Was against Zachariah Branch early in his college career. In addition to Mekhi Lemon, still was behind Mekhi Lemon in later years. Early declare guy. Some of the concerns with him is ability to separate. So like I do the targets per out run versus uncontested targets per out run. He was one of the guys that had the highest like contested target rate and thus a pretty low uncontested targets per out run. Probably correlated with this is like sub 10th percentile reception perception marks against each of man, zone, and press. So I think there's a lot of red flags on his profile, but some of the zoomed out stuff is like kind of interesting, and he's really cheap. And there's no one outside of Zay Flowers that is particularly ingrained as a high volume target earner. Are you a little bit dubious of like how seemingly every single wide receiver who thrives making spectacular catches is apparently the best player in preseason?
No, yeah, I am. Yeah. Everything you just said, I was like, well, Lane's not a redraft candidate. I mean, I think you still think more than I do in terms of best ball, and what you're describing could probably work in best ball, but there's just no world where I would draft what you just said and redraft. I just don't think that's going to be consistent enough in an offense that's going to have a lot of competition for the secondary targets and everything. I mean, it's Zay Flowers, and then if he can't even separate in college and he has a high rate of uncontested, low rate of uncontested, like the big gap between the two. Everything I heard about him in the offseason and like the quotes from Coach Begindex and stuff was like they basically wanted to use him as the DeAndre Hopkins role from last year, which is like, there was one quote that was like Lamar Jackson loves a 50-50 like ball winner. It's like, yeah, that's great. You'll have 40 targets and you'll win some balls and you'll score a few touchdowns. Like he's not gonna go for 85 targets or 100 targets, or it just doesn't seem that way based on everything you just said about the profile. That was my prior on the
most likely income. That's certainly what I think is the most likely outcome. Yeah.
Denzel Boston, same deal. Like the quarterbacks last year couldn't get the balls to the receivers. Like one of the reasons I was like vaguely still defending like Jerry Jeudy, not really defending him, but like the Jerry Jeudy stuff is fascinating because people are confident he's just going to go away, and he still owed so much money, and he's 27. Like they're just going to play the rookies and not play Jerry Jeudy. I don't know. That's going to be weird. Jerry Jeudy.
I think they're going to play all three. Their tight end room is so thin after Fan, and like they should be near the top of the league in 11 rate.
Jerry Jeudy's like targets per out was like 17%. I think it was a career low. It was also the highest for all wide receivers on the team because they literally couldn't get the ball down the field to the wide receivers last year in this offense. It was all like Dylan Sampson had really high targets per out. Quinton Judkins did. Harold Fandon did. It was all the underneath weapons that got all the like a ton of volume. But like what's his face? Isaiah Bond was even worse, and like when Tillman played, he was even worse, and like every other guy that they were playing. Point being, Denzel Boston looks amazing in camp. That's fantastic. I think he's really good. I'm a UW fan. I'm in. What he needs is a quarterback that can get him the ball vertically so he can go win in the similar situations to what Lane just said. Maybe he can be a little bit better than that. Doesn't seem like he's going to get that, right? So that seems like a struggle for him. I'd way rather play Concepcion where you get the underneath stuff and the more ball in hand stuff. Yeah. I'm not out on Boston, but it's just like I'm with you. The fact that all these like ball winners look great in camp makes sense, and that's not really what we want in the regular season.
Right. I think that's for a combination of reasons why this is the case. It's been the case before. Like remember Brian Edwards was always a training camp all-star.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a reason for this. It's just quarterbacks I think are far more willing to throw 50-50 balls in a training camp scenario. Like why wouldn't you be more willing to take some risks when the downside is not that high? And two, I think that we're not seeing the stat sheet every day. We're getting like reports from beat writers, and I think it's highly plausible that in some of these practices, beat writers are obviously going to be more willing to be impressed by some spectacular catches than like some pretty routine, guy caught a drag route and he ran for 7 yards afterwards. Guy caught a screen pass. So when we're just getting kind of the impressions, we're getting the videos, like, yeah, these flashier players, I think are going to be more in the news. Boston has a lot more substance on the profile than Lane, and I'm not saying that you didn't say that he did. I think you've said before you like Boston a lot. I think he, in a vacuum, like if Denzel Boston was on the Ravens, I do think I'd be getting a lot more excited. But Boston on the Browns, tougher sell. I moved him up. I think he might get chased up to where I'm struggling to get in, but I do think he has a decent profile beyond like purely being a ball winner.
The other part about camp with what you were saying is that they do a lot of one-on-ones. A lot of the video we see, there's no safety. Like the NFL defenses during the season are rolling a safety over the top of that route, but beat reporters are like, oh, he made a great play over a defender. It's like, yeah, he doesn't get to make that play over one defender in the NFL in the regular season. Like, he has to make that play over two defenders. That's not how that works.
Or that ball's never getting thrown because there's two defenders.
Or it's not getting thrown, to your point. Yeah. Let's go to the next one. We're
right.
on pace for a 4-hour show. We've got the two divisions in an hour.
All right. We'll pick up the pace. AFC South. So we'll start with the Colts. We're gonna have to get out the Zapruder film because there may or may not have been a second shot. Alec Pierce. It was reported by James Boyd.
That was a dad joke, man. Yeah, you're gonna make some great dad jokes someday. I'm excited for you.
Thanks. I was proud of that one. All right, so Alec Pierce, James Boyd reported. Also, Adam Schefter said this, like on the Pat McAfee show, that Alec Pierce got a second PRP injection. I believe it's either platelet-rich plasma or plasma-rich platelets. I think platelet-rich plasma.
The first one.
Okay. He got a second PRP shot in June. That followed, of course, the surgery in March, and that the first PRP shot was in January. It's now being reported by like literally Chris Ballard, who I have like so many questions about why Chris Ballard is coming out to the podium to make declarative statements, but he comes out, he says, no, this report is wrong. He didn't get a second shot. He also, for reasons that are nonsense to me, this is like, now we're just getting into like my grievances as a Colts fan, but he comes out and he's like, no, Alec Pierce is playing week 1 for sure. And I'm like, I'm not even saying that won't be true, but like, there's no way he can possibly know that that's true because Alec Pierce is currently not practicing and he's limping around at camp. So why you as a general manager would put this pressure on your player to be like, no, he'll be ready. I promise you he'll be ready.
Because he paid him a ton of money this offseason.
Yeah. It's like, to me, like, it's to me not only like unreliable, it's actually just unfair to Alec Pierce, in my opinion, to put that level of pressure on him. But whatever. What is also really notable about all this reporting is like Schefter went on the McAfee show and he said, there's nothing to worry about because the Colts wouldn't assign him to this contract probably if they didn't think he'd be ready for week 1. And it's important to note the order of operations. So he got a first PRP shot in January. The hope was that treatment would mean he would not need surgery. He then gets signed to the contract. Now I'm doing some guessing, but I'm guessing his doctors had set up some sort of plan of if you don't show enough process by X date, we're going to do the surgery so you have enough time to be ready for week 1 as long as the surgery goes well. He then gets the surgery after signing the contract, after the PRP recovery did not go well. So that's like a nonsense narrative. Anyways, this is usually the part where I list things and I let you talk, but once we get into the Colts, I guess I decided I was just going to completely monopolize this.
No, you're a Colts fan. Go for it. It's tough. So, they gave him $60 million fully guaranteed.
I think 80.
80? I got it as 60 on OTC,
okay, maybe 60. Anyways, all that said, basically Alec Pierce, Chris Ballard has a lot of confidence he's going to be out there in week 1. I don't necessarily share this confidence, but he remains walking around very gingerly at camp. There's people that are doing my favorite training camp bit when they take the photos of the calves. They try to measure whether one calf is smaller than the other calf. We're doing that. We're doing calf watch with Alec Pierce. Anyways, that's all the Alec Pierce stuff. The rest of the FC South, now it's time for John Shipley chasing. Chris Rodriguez, we mentioned the last show, is getting some goal line work. He's now reporting that it's a full-on even split. Both Tootin and Rodriguez are making plays. They're both looking good, but that they're splitting reps with the ones evenly, along with LaQuint Allen playing in obvious passing downs. There was also a Cameron Wolfe report that the Jaguars envision Brian Thomas in the Brandon Cooks / Sammy Watkins role. And there's further reporting that Parker Washington is going to play in 12 and in 13 and be the primary receiver in all formations. We'll go to the Titans. I don't have much of the Titans. I'm not going to lie. I don't know for sure if the Titans beat reporter industry is thriving, but I don't see a lot of the Titans. This is a total joke. But Wan'Dale Robinson, he's been invited to stay at Cam Ward's house. So that's the most notable report I saw on the Titans. There's some other stuff, like Nick Singleton looks good apparently, but nothing much concrete. The last thing I'll note is on the Texans is Jaden Higgins continues to draw really strong camps. I know you've talked favorably about him, and we touched on Tank Dell a while ago. He has now been included in team drills for the first time 3 days ago. It's a positive update for Tank Dell. It's a guy that I think any human being is rooting for. I remain pretty bearish on his fantasy outlook, but big update for Dell and him trying to battle his way back. Thoughts on the AFC South?
Rooting for Dell. Recently called him the worst pick in late. Like I don't think he's draftable. I think it's pretty long road back still. But rooting for him, like you said, for sure. Wan'Dale Robinson staying at Cam Ward's house, obviously the biggest news here. The Thomas and the Cooks and Watkins role, I assume, refers to what Brandon Cooks and Sammy Watkins did in the Rams offense
Correct.
under Liam Cohen years ago, which that was a period of time where like Brandon Cooks and Sammy Watkins were good in that role, but it was Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods that were doing everything for that pass game. Just for people who don't understand what that role means, that was the third role. That was the role that didn't matter as much. Like that was the other role. C-Rod and Tootin's evenly splitting first team reps is been all over the place. I've definitely heard that one. But I want to go back to the Colts. The Colts, your discussion. First of all, report on the contract, $60 million fully guaranteed. On the fifth day of next league year, $10 million more guaranteed. On the fifth day of the league year after that, $14 million more guaranteed. $84 million in total guarantees, $60 million fully guaranteed. Those other guarantees will hit.
The old total versus fully. Yeah.
Right. But
I mean, the first of that 10 is happening. He's not getting cut in March.
That's what I was going to say. They're likely to hit. I was going to say, you're more right than I am as a Colts fan. Yeah. Those are going to hit. The $10 million is going to hit. It's going to be 70. Maybe they get out of the $14 million after 2 years, but still, $70 million minimum, fully guaranteed. A lot of money for Alec Pierce to hopefully be able to walk, and Colts fans are loving it.
Please don't put in the newspaper that I'm mad. Oh, man. Also, like, this is one where it's so interesting to me which injuries. It's a real, like, frog in boiling water situation. You know, it's like Luther Burden can tweak a groin in camp and be expected to be fine in a few weeks. And everyone like completely lost their mind for a day. Alec Pierce has been like highly questionable for week 1, 4 months. And I think it took until like yesterday for him to finally flip Josh Downs in ADP. It's a wild one to me. Like it's been like it's been a very open question of whether Alec Pierce will start the regular season on PUP, but people are just hitting that button until like the last couple days, which
that's what I was telling you about the underdog anchoring, dude. Like the profile wasn't even good. When I did the ETE show, we went through the projections like 2 months ago. I was like, he caught 49 balls last year, guys. Like his ADOT was so high. Like, he needs a whole role change. Like my take at that time was he's not healthy yet enough to be practicing the different stuff that you want him to do to be able to draft him here. Because he didn't do enough last year. Even though he was efficient as a deep target, he didn't do enough to justify where his ADP was. The contract is not everything, but that's where we're at right now with fantasy. That's where, I personally think Christian Watson is overdrafted too. I think that's where we're at with him too. He got the huge contract. Anyway, AFC South, not a ton there. Anything else for you in that division?
This is like last thing I'll note. I mean, look, take what you want because the other receivers on the field, I think, were Ashton Dulin and Laquan Treadwell. But joint practice yesterday with the Patriots. Daniel Jones completed 12 passes in the full practice against the Patriots. Do you want to know how many of those 12 passes were to Josh Downs or Tyler Warren?
Well, was Downs playing?
Yeah, he's back. He's good.
Oh, okay. He had the groin. That's great.
Yeah, that's why I left him off. He tweaked his groin after we recorded. He came back before we recorded again. He's fine.
I see it now in the write up. That's I wish I wouldn't have, because that would have been, I know, it would have been my guess, I think.
Yeah.
11 of 12.
Yeah,
I love
11. Yeah.
I love
it. Was there was one day where Josh Downs was not yet practicing, and the Colts Twitter account posted a compilation of Laquan Treadwell catches, and that was I was looking up therapy offices. That was a tough 24 hours. We're doing Treadwell bull posting in the Big 2-6. Oh my God.
Colts therapy. All right. AFC West.
Yeah, AFC West. Please trade for Kayshon Boutte, by the way. Chris Ballard. I don't know why Keenan Allen is solving our Alec Pierce problem. He runs a 4.9. AFC West, we got Rashee Rice. This is what I would call a bearish beat report. Nate Taylor.
I mean, great. Just random take as you're moving off the Colts. Kayshon Boutte to the Colts is, I like it. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this has been because all this Pierce FUD is everyone's saying they're going to sign Keenan Allen, which they probably will, by the way. But I just, as a Colts fan, nothing makes less sense than, well, the Colts might not have one of the best deep threats in the NFL ready, so they should sign a guy who might not run a 40 under 5 seconds. How is Keenan Allen solving this problem?
Why are we so
I get
confident?
Confidence is confidence, but
why are we so confident on August 13th they're going to sign Keenan Allen?
I'm not that confident. I'm saying
Okay.
It wouldn't. I just don't want to be.
You said they probably will, and I'm assuming that means that a lot of other people think that it's a done deal. I've heard the rumor.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm more saying this as I've been tweeting about how I don't think that they should sign Keenan Allen, or specifically why that isn't. Not even as much that they shouldn't sign him, but why that isn't an actual solution to the Alec Pierce problem, by any means. And I don't want that to be conflated as me. Because some people think I have inside information on the Colts. I obviously don't. But I don't want that to be conflated as me saying they won't sign Keenan Allen. They may or may not sign Keenan Allen. It makes sense. Stephen Holder has been saying that he thinks it would make sense for a long time. I kind of doubt that he's just saying that as a pure opinion. I feel like it's probably been discussed. They obviously have a need at receiver, even if Pierce was healthy. I just mentioned Laquan Treadwell. So it wouldn't shock me, but I think that what they should look at is Boutte, Darius Slayton, Cedric Tillman apparently is a camp cut.
I just Googled Keenan Allen Colts. I'm scrolling down. There's what people are saying, right? There's the Reddit for the Colts, whatever, our Colts. There's Stephen Holder on X, and there's Jakob Sanderson, fantasy football analyst. That's the three things that popped up. This would be a better fit for what we're lacking than Keenan Allen at Colts from Jakob Sanderson. I assume this is
that was me quoting Cedric Tillman. So that's where I'm at as a Colts fan. I'm wishcasting Cedric Tillman.
Amazing. All right. Let's
Oh
move on
man,
to the
it's
Colts.
a tough scene. Anyway, we're gonna move on from the Colts. So in negative beat reporting news, Nate Taylor, Chiefs beat writer, has said he thinks that asking for 900 yards would be too much from Rashee Rice this year, and that there's a lot of shots of Rashee Rice laboring around at camp, not looking great on the knee. So we'll revisit the Rashee Rice discord. Speaking of ball winners who are balling out, but this time a guy that I think both of us have a lot of love for in our hearts. So we'll see how ideologically consistent we can be. Pat Bryant is the talk of Broncos camp right now. They did a compilation of everyone on the Broncos saying how great he is, from Pat Surtain to Sean Payton. Sean Payton was on with Kay Adams. They were like, how are you going to keep this guy off the field? And Sean Payton said, we're not, Kay. So thanks, Sean Payton. An always reliable narrator.
He also was the one that got me to finally, in August, convince you. I didn't have him anywhere. I had been saying he was a bust all of last year, but he kept talking about Evan Ingram so favorably that I was like, you didn't want to take Ingram. We took Ingram together on a main event team. So that was, Sean Payton loves talking up his guys.
Sean Payton's the least reliable narrator of all time.
So unreliable.
But the Pat Bryant drumbeat is legitimately hard to ignore at this point. It's from all reporters. Yes. We're talking about it constantly. There's been a discussion of whether he should be nicknamed Patty Ice or PB13. We'll get your thoughts on that. And then Raiders camp. They're talking about an increased passing game role for Ash Agenti. That's cool. And then the real news, which is goes to the state of the Raiders, is that Malik Benson is apparently pulling ahead in the wide receiver 3 battle with Jack Bash and Dante Thornton. So that's a good receiver room. And then we got this report from the Los Angeles Chargers, which is direct from Mike McDaniel. He said, bad news, fantasy owners. Good news is I see all 3 of these guys, referring to, of course, Amarian Hampton, Keaton Mitchell, and Kamani Vidal, producing at a very high level. The bad news is I can't tell you which games those will be. So thoughts on anything from the AFC West?
I'm not that concerned about the Chargers quote. The way I wrote it up in my offseason stealing signals thing was that I thought that they would have intent to use Kamani Vidal, and as the season worked out, they would just not find enough work for him. I felt that he would likely get some situational usage, and then I thought I wrote it as like this will be a legitimate like limitation to Amarian Hampton, who's already going to get a little bit limited by Keaton in the regular flow of games. But I think Vidal will wind up being their garbage time back. Like if they win games by double digits, he'll get all the carries in the fourth quarter because they'll be like, oh, we want to get him work, you know? And so I still projected him for like 70 carries or something. I think he's going to have games where he gets 8-10 carries in the fourth quarter of a game. But I do, and I think early in the year, they're going to use him. I think as things progress, presuming that Amarian Hampton is as good as he looked last year, he was meaningfully better in all the peripherals than Vidal in the same offense. And Vidal had a good year, but Hampton was better. And assuming that he is what we think he is as a first-round talent, and assuming that Keaton Mitchell stays healthy, and I think they have a real plan for Keaton Mitchell, I just don't think you find enough snaps to rotate the third guy in when he's Kamani Vidal. As good as I was really into him as a prospect. I think he's good. When I say like that, like in a derogatory term about him, it's just like he's not that dynamic. He's a bowling ball. He's a good runner. They may use him as like a goal line back, which would be frustrating for the other guys.
I think they'll use him in like very obvious pass pro reps. He was good in that area
that
last
was the
year.
other.
I think like 3rd and 10. I just wrote about like some situational stuff with running back today. I think that'll be like an area, but not like it's not as a receiving back with intent. You know, I think that'll go to Hampton and to Mitchell,
Right.
but the very obvious pass pro.
That's the other
he'll
thing
catch a pass or two in that. But.
Yeah, that was the other thing I wrote about was like he'll play some on obvious pass downs, maybe the long down and distance stuff, and then garbage time rushes like that. And then he'll get some like other carries, but like as the season progresses, assuming anything about the Amarian Hampton and Keaton Mitchell upside theses are correct, they will separate from Kamani Vidal. They just will. Like that's what those players are. This idea that like McDaniel is saying in camp, I see all 3 of those guys producing at a very high level is one of those things. It's like, yeah, sometimes they tell us numbers or they tell us usage and they don't really like they're coaches. Like they're what I actually take from this is that's favorable is Mike McDaniel is saying he does have a lot of intent to run this offense through the running backs, which has been my read all offseason, frankly. I mean, that's confirmation bias, obviously, but the way I wrote it up is like, I don't love Ladd McConkey at his price. I don't love Quentin Johnson at his either, and I love this offense, so I don't love that I'm not in on the 2 most expensive receiving weapons. I've been trying to play Trey Harris where I can. Obviously, we had the long discussion about Oronde Gadsden. We heard a lot of feedback on. I think the running backs are really meaningful. It's part of why I'm playing Justin Herbert is I think the running backs are going to be really utilized in the passing game. You go to the Mike McDaniel trends, 113-plus running back targets all 4 years in Miami. The Chargers had like 133 combined the last 2 years. Like under Greg Roman, they've not been throwing to the backs. Mike McDaniel has always thrown to the backs. There was talk this offseason about, Justin Herbert's footwork and working on his footwork to work on the quick passing game. They're going to do the quick passing stuff, man. The stuff with Keaton Mitchell running the vertical routes. I just talked about this on the Stealing Bananas, but this happens a lot these days where teams split the running back out wide. Defenses often respond by sending a linebacker out there, and then they send him on a go route. That's where Ramondre Stevenson got his huge receiving efficiency last year, was on multiple go routes where he's just lined up outside because defenses matched by putting a linebacker out there so they could keep a cornerback on the inside on the wide receivers. If you have Keaton Mitchell out there, you can't put a linebacker out there. He's one of the fastest time players in the league. He's going to just blow your linebacker off the field. So you have to put a cornerback out there, which means the interior wide receivers now become they're going to be like running zone and stuff on the interior, but it's a problem. Like if you can use Keaton Mitchell as a guy who's actually stretching the field with his speed, and you have to put real speed out there or put a safety over the top, it creates room underneath for Ladd McConkey, for Quentin Johnston, for these other guys. I do see that as bullish for those guys for sure. I think defenses are going to have to play them with more defensive backs because Mike McDaniel is going to create these kinds of conflicts, and then they're going to be able to get back into positive run situations against lighter defenses. That's going to create space because those guys get blocked off the field by, Charlie Kolar and all these guys that everyone loves. Like they're going to, and then suddenly Keaton Mitchell's going to be in the second level, and you're not going to have an angle on him. Even though you have DBs on the field, like you're not, you know what I mean? And I think the same thing's going to be true from Amari and Hampton. I'm taking both of them aggressively. I think they're going to be the centerpieces of the offense. I think they're going to score a lot of touchdowns. One of the things with Mike McDaniel's quick game is that Devon Achane caught a lot of TDs the last few years. And I think, Herbert's going to throw TDs to other guys too. They're going to use Quentin Johnston's athleticism in there. He's always caught a lot of touchdowns. I do think the vertical receiving stuff for the receivers and the tight ends is going to be a little bit unconcentrated. That's my concern with like where the relative ADPs are for the higher up guys. And I've come around to the idea that I think Ladd McConkey is just pretty significantly overpriced. Like the bet on him is that he would consolidate. Maybe he still will. It's a tricky bet, man. It's a really tricky bet at his cost. I don't see what the difference is between him and like Parker Washington, who's the meaningful bet in another good offense that's unconsolidated and those kinds of things. So anyway, I think that's a fascinating quote about using the three different backs. I do think it's evidence that Mike McDaniel intends to utilize the backs, right? Like that is a positive signal there, in addition to the obvious sort of negative implication of more of a committee. But I mean, I was already considering it as at least a two-back committee. Like the pie here for the running backs could be so big. That's the emphasis I'm trying to draw.
I see it very similarly, and I am definitely in agreement with that. This quote, which kind of seems bearish, is like a little bit under the radar bullish. I mean, Mike McDaniel's bullish about everybody too, and to be clear, he talks glowingly about his receivers and stuff as well. But I do read into it, even if it is confirmation bias to an extent, that he's talking about how he has big plans for the running back room, and I do think that like the fantasy valuable touches are going to flow through Hampton and through Mitchell. And I mean, more confident, obviously, that a lot of them flow through Hampton than Mitchell. But I'm intrigued by both. And yeah, I agree. Like if you're Mike McDaniel and you're designing all of these dynamic touch opportunities for running backs, scheming them into space the way that he does better than anyone else in the league, like you're going to want to get dynamic players involved. That's Hampton. That's Mitchell. I believe that they like Kamani Vidal. They should like Kamani Vidal. He did a lot for them last year when they were in a tough spot with both of their two running backs going down, and he stepped up and shouldered the load quite competently for 6 weeks, and yeah, if I was a coaching staff, like I'd want to talk up that player, right, to keep his head up. And I'm sure, injuries happen, so he might have a big role at some point in the year. I agree that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a point of emphasis in the weekly game plan about how do we scheme the ball into this guy's hands. So,
because they have to make Keaton Mitchell, a point of emphasis, like schematically. I just strongly think that they brought in this guy with this type of speed. It's a dynamic element, and if you're doing that, then Vidal is really cutting into Hampton, who, to everything you just said about Vidal, they feel the same way about Hampton. They drafted him in the first round. That's a guy they want to keep his head up and everything. They're going to play him 60% of the snaps. They're not going to let him get down to 40% and like really cut in.
Not unless he's bad, but we have no reason to think he's bad. So yeah, I agree. It's important that you emphasize like Hampton's metrics. You've already said this, but Hampton's metrics were better last year than Vidal's, even while Hampton was struggling with injury for parts of the season, even though it was his first season. I think that's really important to emphasize that even in a year that was uneven at times for Hampton, where he started the year a little slow, finished the year a little slow because he was dealing with injury, still on the whole, the upside that he was able to flash in the periods of the season when he was at full health and he was thriving, the aggregate of his season was still better than Vidal's in a season that, for grading on a curve, he gets an A. But in the NFL, we're not grading on a curve, and Hampton proved to be the more dynamic player. Mitchell's a really dynamic player. I loved the point that you made about the getting the linebackers off the field and how that's going to open everything up. I'm playing the Chargers pretty similarly to how you are. And yeah, with the receivers, I didn't put this in the quote, but like Trey Harris has got nothing but positive buzz. They're talking about how he's right up there with QJ and Ladd McConkey. I think if you're wanting to play the Chargers receivers, like that to me is the way to do it.
Easy.
Because the opportunity cost is nothing. And I think that the prospect profile is really legitimately interesting with Trey Harris. I think he has real upside. And yeah, it's tough to pay the premium right now for McConkey and for Johnston, even though, well, I honestly really struggle to see the upside case for Quentin Johnston at his cost. But I really do see the upside case for Ladd McConkey. I just don't feel like it's particularly well calibrated.
Yeah, agreed. Last year he was basically on yards per game. I was looking at yards per game is a very base level stat, whatever. But he was basically on the same level as Marvin Harrison, who we've all decided like can never produce again. And it's like, McConkey had the better rookie season for sure. They're both third-year guys. Harrison had the much better prospect profile coming out, the way bigger draft capital. And like Harrison's going way later. And I'm not necessarily even on Harrison at that point. Like we're really buying into a year 3 breakout rebound for Ladd McConkey as a community where he's going. And I understand like this idea of like you want to be in on the offense, but to your point about Trey Harris, like if everything I just said about the running backs being really centrally heavy to this offense, and then like the wide receivers and tight ends are unconcentrated, if it plays out that way and you've taken a lot of Trey Harris, you're in a tough spot. Like you're not getting points off of that, but it's a small miss in the late rounds. If you've done that with Ladd McConkey, you're screwed. If it plays out separately, like in a way that actually produces wide receiver scoring, more wide receiver scoring than I'm letting on, you can still win with the Trey Harris cheap pick because his profile is legitimately very good, and he may actually leap both of those guys. I don't think people understand like the possibility for that is actually there. If you're taking Ladd McConkey where he's going, you have to have multiple things. The uncertainty in the offense, it has to work in a way that is favorable, is concentrated, is favorable for these players, which is something that Mike McDaniel did in Miami. He concentrated more volume when he had less skill position depth. But you have to have that. You have to have it work in that way, and it's very favorable. And you have to have McConkey be the one who is the guy who consolidates, and it's not even necessarily clear that he's the clear head and shoulders ahead of everybody. So it's tricky. It's a tricky bet, man.
It is a tricky bet, and I've been getting more and more bullish on Trey. This is the Long View podcast. If you want to take the long view on this a little bit, like this is a guy who coming out had put up like truly hilarious stats at Ole Miss. He had, I think, 5.12 yards per route run. It's one of the most insane sort of partial season stuff that you can imagine. That's really encouraging. One of the things that people would bring up about Trey Harris, it's impossible to even know what to think of this guy because he's playing from this gimmicky offense, and how is this going to translate? So, like, we're talking about a guy with a lot of raw talent who came from, his college career was he started at Louisiana Tech. He started at Louisiana Tech, which obviously is a tough level to translate from. Comes up, eventually plays at Ole Miss in this really bizarre offense. Shows a ton of raw ability. Difficult profile to translate to the NFL game. Then lands on a team that has serious playoff aspirations, that has Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen ahead of him. Like, what can you realistically expect in a rookie season from that profile? I think that, maybe if he is a superstar, you come in right away. I just think that he has a lot of very valid excuses for having had a slow start to his rookie year. He was still a player that the coaching staff found ways to get on the field. They were playing him in like run blocking situations. He was
ran
coming on playing
294
more
routes
towards the end of the year. Yeah. So I think his rookie, I think he's a legitimately high upside prospect who I think is seen a lot more disfavorably now than when he came out, in a way that I think is a little bit unfair to what we would expect from a player who should have needed a bit of an adjustment period to the National Football League and was dropped in a spot where he wasn't going to be a guy that they were going to scheme a bunch of production to. This was not a developmental team that he jumped on, and it was not a particularly light wide receiver room that he jumped onto where he could have an opportunity to just start right away and get first read targets right away. So, when I hear that how encouraged they are and a new offensive coaching staff is by him, like that makes me pretty encouraged, especially with two guys that I do think are a little bit fragile and more fragile than their price indicates. And, we talked about it for an hour last week, but like all of this Oronde Gadsden, Charlie Kolar stuff, like to me, the player that is most inversely correlated with Oronde Gadsden in the offense is Trey Harris, not Charlie Kolar. Like if Arondé Gadsden is a guy who is disfavored, we talked about this last week. That is just because that appears to be the case right now, does not mean that that's going to be the case all season long. But if you are taking the Arondé Gadsden FUD seriously, I think that the obvious corollary to that is they play more receivers, fewer tight ends, more opportunities for Harris, running routes against Charlie Kolar versus being subbed off the field to get Gadsden on the field, a bunch of multi-tight end sets.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really considered that people were knocking Harris a lot for the rookie year, but he ran almost 300 routes. One of the interesting things about him, the 3 games Quentin Johnston missed last year, he played 14 games. Harris ran, by PFF's numbers, at least 82% routes. A route on at least 82% of dropbacks. He wasn't super high otherwise. Quentin Johnston was playing ahead of him when he was out on the field, but his Trey Harris's route rate was rising into the playoffs. Like in that playoff game, he was at 59%. That was his season high in games that Quentin Johnston actually played in. So Johnston missed 15 and 18. Those were games that Harris had really high numbers, but in 16 and 17, between that, Johnston was in. Harris was at 52 and 43%, which are, were reasonable for him. I just said 59% was his highest in games that Johnston played. And Johnston was at 73% and 81% in those games. Early in the year, he was playing like as high as 90%. Point being, if you look at the routes on a weekly basis, it really starts about week 8 for Quentin Johnston, where Trey Harris is suddenly in a real role. In the very beginning of the season, Trey Harris is sub 30% routes. He's in that week 8 to like week 12, 13, 14 range. He's over 30% most of the time. Touches 50% in week 11. And it's a stretch where Quentin Johnston's routes fell meaningfully. He's suddenly in the 70s a lot more. He has a couple games in the 60s. He was dealing with some injuries, I think, because he did miss some games in there, but or he missed week 6, and then he ended up missing week 15 on the other side of that stretch. But early in the season, he was playing a ton, and that's when he was most productive. If you go look at Quentin Johnston's game log, it's a lot worse. And I've emphasized this offseason, his game log was worse than later in the season, and he was losing routes at that time as Trey Harris was gaining some. Again, Trey Harris is just a rookie in a competitive team, as you described. But one of the big things about the like gimmicky offense stuff, he had the 5+ yards per route run. He also had a 3+ yards per route run the year prior and 2+ the years prior to that when he was really young. There's not a huge route sample there, but when you have a 5+ yards per route run, the way I've talked about this is like you could literally double your routes and have 0 yards on the rest and still be at a 2.5 yards per route run. Like, you're still very good. So you can call it gimmicky all you want, but like he was insanely productive. 1,000 yards on 200 routes. We've always said that
the air raid offense has lasted for years, and like it's not like everyone comes out with a 5 yards per route run.
Right. That's the point. Yeah, I mean, production leads to production. That's the theory is that really good players make plays. They gain yards, and it shows up in the stats. Trey Harris did that. He did that in a major, major way. Even though it was gimmicky, it was such an off-the-charts number that you have to believe that he's capable of producing. He's capable of catching and gaining yards. He had an insane catch in camp where he like contorted his body as he was falling down and kept the ball on top of him. It like basically didn't make any buzz because everybody's so certain that he's buried, and Ladd McConkey and all these guys, like all the other, anyone else makes a great catch, and it's like the biggest thing in the world. I don't know. That's not fair. I saw the Trey Harris play circulating, but it's like nobody was like, oh, I'm going to move Trey Harris up my boards. They've just convinced themselves like what he did on that play to contort his body, like that's part of what receivers do to make plays, is body control, is getting their body in a place where their hands can then make the catch. That ball's thrown behind his back, and he basically falls. He does like the Matrix Neo thing where he's like dodging bullets to fall directly backward and let the ball sort of land on his lap. It looks quote unquote lucky. It's a feel for the game. It's a feel for ball tracking that again shows up in the production all across his college career. 4 years of 2+ yards per route run, multiple years over 3, 1 year over 5. A good player, a good at the game football player that people are just like confident can't be, because I don't know, because he came along later than Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey, because Quentin Johnston doesn't have that. Like he's had a lot of spotty stuff in his production profile. I mean, he was good. He was a good prospect. He had some good stuff as a collegiate prospect, and so did Ladd. But I mean, I don't know. I'm just there's reasons that I'm concerned about those guys as long-term, like long view players, Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnson, that I think are relatively fair. So anyway, playing it this way to me, I'm glad that you're on it too, because it's very kind of straightforward. Anyway, we spent a lot of time on the Chargers.
We did. For anyone who watched our ship chasing main yesterday, I was probably antsy to talk about Trey Harris because I was trying to do Trey Harris talk, and it wasn't going anywhere yesterday. So I was excited to get in and try to flesh out why I was trying to pound the table for Trey Harris. But,
For sure.
Anyway, is there anyone else in the AFC West you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about all the rest of the AFC West. I'm super excited.
Sweet. All right.
I mean, Pat Bryant being the talk of the camp is fantastic. You asked me, you said the Pat Bryant contested catch thing. I want to go back to that because you know the prospects way better than me. They were comparing him to like Michael Thomas last year when he was a rookie. So isn't he more of a separator, or is he more of a?
Yeah,
was he bad in that uncontested target per out run stat?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't bad. He's just like a big bodied receiver, and like one of his calling cards coming out was his ability to play the ball, for sure, which is positive.
Yeah,
and he was a guy that was. I was really excited when he landed with Sean Payton because he was primarily a outside receiver in college who was a bit more of a brawler, but who a lot of the people who are more into the weeds on this stuff said would potentially translate best to the NFL as a big slot, which is that role that Sean Payton has used very favorably in the past with guys who they've kind of converted into being more of a middle of the field player because he has that strong feel for space, he has really strong hands over the middle, all that stuff. So I think with it is like he's not. It's not an inability to separate by any stretch, but he's not like the twitchiest guy in the world, in terms of an outside receiver. He's not really going to be that 4.4 blazing speed player. He's a bit more of like a feel player, a bit more of a strong hands guy.
I thought you were saying that was more of a red flag in his profile a little bit because you said, are we going to be able to, be whatever the mental gymnastics we are going to do? Is he doesn't have the red flag the way that like Jacoby Lane has red flags.
Not anywhere close to that extent.
Not anywhere close. Perfect. The Raiders increased pass roll for Ashton Genty sounds amazing. Super pumped on him. Malik Benson, wide receiver 3. Do we care about the Raiders receiving room at all?
I mean, I care about Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty.
That's it. Yeah, the Jalen Naylor hype is like I was talking about it with Sean yesterday too, and I was just like, I can't be bothered to care about Jalen Naylor, can I?
I mean, like, one of Naylor or Tucker will probably be a good best ball pick, but outside of best ball formats, like, and if we're doing Malik Benson hype, and like anything can happen, but that was not a prospect that I was particularly
excited about. If he's decent, or if Naylor's decent, or if Tucker's decent, it just draws coverage away from Brock Bowers, and then you just want more Brock Bowers. That's the solution.
Yeah, like every single one of their receivers is the kind of receiver that ball knowers love to get online and say, like, these fantasy guys, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, this guy's way better in real life than you realize.
They said that about Jack Besh last year.
That's what I'm saying. Every single one of their receivers, like Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, Jack Besh, Dante Thornton, Malik Benson. Like this is like the you just don't know ball bro receiver room. Like every single one of these guys.
Dude. Show me the production.
Well, a common theme in the you just don't know ball bro receiver room is like a bunch of guys who don't really produce that much, who people love to tell you are way better than their production because they do other things. But like they have an entire receiver room of guys who do other things, but they don't have any receivers who do the things. But I guess they have a tight end who does the things.
Do any of you receive? It's right there in the name.
Right. Like it's a lot of like,
it's not wide blocker. We don't call it wide blocker.
Right. It's like Jack Bash is a great blocker and Trey Tucker's a great field stretcher. And like Jalen Naylor is like done well in like some of like the separation score stuff. And like Malik Benson's really fast. Dante Thornton's really fast. But like, there's not a lot of receptions in this receiving room.
Wide wind sprinter.
Yeah, so
no, we want the receiving. We would like the receiving. All right, cool.
Yeah,
the Rashee Rice thing, clearing 900 yards is asking too much. The reason I hate this so much is beat reporters who say stats always do it on a scale that indicates that they don't really understand. Like, they don't look at
Correct.
box scores as much as we do, and they don't look
Right.
at...
It's that they think a team runs 110 plays per game.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say clearing 900 yards is asking too much, it's way too realistic. It hit me so hard. It's like, nope, that is way too good of a prediction. I cannot accept that could be a possibility. So the knee stuff is a concern. When we talked about the Chiefs the other day, I was saying to you, are you just out on the Chiefs? Rashee Rice came back last year, and he wasn't very good, and that's why people aren't on him. And mainly it's because his yards per target was meaningfully lower. It was over 2 yards worse than the year prior and his rookie year. He's been really good ball in hand. He's actually been really efficient for a guy who's had a super low ADOT. Yards per target is half of the yards per outrun equation. Targets per outrun is the other half. I talk about this all the time.
He's still had a 20.
Still had a 29.1% targets per outrun last year. Even though we had this very low yards per target, he was still over 2 yards per outrun. And if you look at this as a 265 route sample and say, prior to that, he had almost 500 routes in the NFL, 483 over the first 2 seasons, and his yards per target was 9.6, 9.7. He's at 7.4 last year. His targets per outrun, same ballpark. It's been 25.5% or higher all 3 years. Obviously, that second season, very small sample, but we now have 3 seasons of small samples where the sum of it is like 28, 29% targets per route. It's more like 28, maybe 27 and a half even. I'm looking at an average, but the highest number was the smallest route sample, whatever. It's a very strong number, targets per outrun. Anyway, is he going to not earn targets? Because 900 yards is not that many if he's anywhere close to this. If he's not going to earn targets, who the fuck is in this passing game? Because I'm not ready to play 37-year-old Travis Kelce. Xavier Worthy he's literally 37 in October. That's not a joke. Oh, Xavier Worthy, you're laughing, but it's serious. Xavier Worthy, he's that old. Xavier Worthy fell on his shoulder, and it's surgically repaired shoulder, and like everyone's like, it may be attached still, it may not. We have no idea. Wind might knock him over. Cyrus Allen is a thing, and I'm pretty sure he's a made-up player. Tyquan Thornton had 19 catches last year. I mean, I keep moving Kenneth Walker up my rankings. Yeah. Are the Chiefs going to be terrible? Like, what's happening? They got rid of Matt Nagy. Like, I actually thought the offense had a chance to schematically improve this year. Is Rashee Rice... I still want to draft Rashee Rice is the problem, so I need you to help me figure this out.
Well, I don't want to draft Rashee Rice. I've been drafting him a little bit after our last conversation because I think you've raised some really good points. And like it's a lot easier to like ignore the math and just be like, I don't want to draft Rashee Rice. So I'm kind of caught between two things. I still maintain that they are going to have a shockingly low pass rate over expectation this year. I made a bet literally yesterday with Pat Carrain. He set the line at over under 4 +4, and I took the under. I maintain that their pass rate over expectation is going to be by far the lowest of the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era. I think it's going to be between 0 and 1. That would be like my bold prediction for the Chiefs. That would be admittedly unlike anything else we've ever seen in this era. I just think that it is necessary for them to have sustainable offense while their quarterback recovers from an ACL, while the receiver room has so many glaring holes, and while they just added this game-changing running back who I think is one of the most exciting talents at his position in the NFL. I think that that's the path forward for them in a large respect. And I think that would open a lot up for them in the passing game to put their limited players in better positions to succeed. But I also think that, one, there's a possibility that I'm just wrong about that completely. 2, there's a possibility that even if I'm right, that would still make them one of the 5 or 6 pass happiest offenses in the league. Yeah. And that someone has to catch the ball. And like
there's still the math is still there.
I am drafting Xavier Worthy, dude. I don't like it at all, but I'm drafting him like kind of a lot and more than I want to. But I think
that's right. I don't want to draft him
if my choice is to be like super in on round 2, 3 turn Rice or super in on round 9, 10 Xavier Worthy, like I feel like Xavier, even if those prices are probably pretty reasonable based on their medium outcomes, I do think Xavier Worthy has asymmetrical upside in terms of a guy that there's a lot of very valid reasons to be bearish about, but also there's a lot in there where if I came from the future and I told you, if we played our game from last week, and I told you, no, Xavier Worthy had an awesome season this year, you could understand how that happened. It was like, oh, this productive prospect who was really young, who wasn't quite ready at the beginning of his rookie season, but flashed a ton over the second half of his rookie season, who got like murdered by his own teammate in the first play of the season last year. Like, actually, he was just good all along, and he showed up and he grew into year 3, and he became maybe the co-leader even of the passing offense, like in an offense where there's a ton of opportunity for him. That makes a ton of sense to me in hindsight, if that's the story of the Chiefs offense. It also, makes a bunch of sense to me, obviously, if Rashee Rice just keeps earning a target on 28% of his routes. But I do think that the way he earns targets is just like so much more fragile than any other player who earns as many targets as he does. Like I would be absolutely stunned if Justin Jefferson plays all 17 games this year and doesn't earn a ton of targets, or Garrett Wilson or CeeDee Lamb or any of these other guys. Whereas Rashee Rice, there's like an element to it that's real, and there's an element to it that is like scammy.
100%. 100%.
It just feels like it could go away if someone else can step up. And I don't know if anyone else can step up, but I guess I would just rather play it at the massive cost differential between them. I'd rather play it through Worthy, I think, if I'm playing the Chiefs passing game.
My two thoughts, I love what you were saying about Worthy. It's really hard to envision him staying healthy. The guy I've been thinking about in relation to him is Jameson Williams, who, when we've talked about him, I've been saying was 5th in the league in wide receiver routes last year. I mean, he ran a ton of routes. They played him a ton. Jameson Williams is tiny. Looks like he's just a small, fast dude. Looks like would get destroyed if anyone ran into him. That's what everyone says about Xavier Worthy. It's what happened to Xavier Worthy as soon as he ran into Travis Kelce. The point is that there are small receivers, small, fast receivers that are able to navigate an NFL season and run the 5th most routes in the entire league at the position and not die. Hopefully that happens to Xavier Worthy this year. Rashee Rice. Everything you said about him in relation to the different really good receivers that he gets drafted near is true. He's nowhere near the player of any of those guys. I don't know if I've made this clear. I want to make this I want to strongly emphasize this. When I talk about Rice favorably, it's because we're playing fantasy football. He draws a massive number of targets. He can't beat man. All this stuff from camp is he can't get open against man coverage. We already knew that. He can't beat man. We already knew that. He still earns a 27% or 29% targets per out because teams play more zone than man in the NFL these days. And when they run zone against Patrick Mahomes' teams because they don't want him to beat him vertical, Rashee Rice has a feel for soft spots in zone. Clearly, a feel for it that is very, very good, up there with good receivers. Now, the way that I talked about it with Sean last year to try to get Sean onto Rashee Rice a little bit was that I was like, it's very unique to this offense. And then Sean kind of repeated it back to me. He's like, something about, the number of other offenses he would be in, he wouldn't be as good in. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Literally 31 other offenses Rashee Rice would be worse in. That's what I believe about Rashee Rice as a player and a fantasy asset. Doesn't matter. He's in the 32nd offense. He's in the offense that needs a volume play to basically take the Travis Kelce role, which Travis Kelce ended up doing a lot of again last year because Rashee Rice missed so much time. But for the entirety of Patrick Mahomes' career, he's had this zone beating, middle of the field, low ADOT, tight end that's been their top target, the superstar player of Travis Kelce, who is 30, going into his age 37 season. He's going to be 37 in October. And you maybe want to play Travis Kelce if you're out on Rashee Rice, honestly. But the whole thesis for me on Rice is
I mix him in, but I am not going to bet my season on a 37-year-old. I don't think he's undraftable, but I have zero excitement to play Travis Kelce.
Yeah. The thesis for me has been that Rashee Rice is the heir apparent to that part of the offense as far as routes intersect and stuff. He doesn't play tight end, but in terms of operating in spaces where Mahomes is going to find that throw, that check down, and Mahomes is going to still be looking vertically. He's going to be looking vertically at Tyquan Thornton. Xavier Worthy's going to run vertical routes, etc., and it's going to threaten defenses when they do drop back, and then he's going to find the underneath stuff in soft spots and zones. You can't play man on everyone. There are situations where, at the goal line and stuff, yeah, it sucks that Rashee Rice can't win on a slant at the goal line. Like, that's not great. He still might catch 100 balls if he's healthy enough to at least move around. Juju Smith-Schuster can't move and would, like, put up production in this offense. Had 33 catches for this offense last year, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a knee. Like, Rashee Rice is... I don't know where he's at health-wise. I think there's way too much emphasis put on his limitations as a player relative to the other superstar wide receivers when we're talking about fantasy football. And I think people don't understand that he doesn't need to be fully healthy to do what he does well, which is find soft spots in zones. You do need that probably to have the strong yards per target bounce back that I was talking about. Some of the yak stuff needs to rebound. Rashee Rice is falling, man. He's falling and falling and falling in some of these drafts. And I'm like, I feel like maybe I shouldn't worry about taking him. When I went through my projections, I was like, he's going to the 2-3 turn. Probably should be going closer to the 1-2 turn. There's room for him. When you look at the target rate stuff, unless you're really in on Xavier Worthy, there's room for him to have 150, 160, 170 targets. Like these crazy target volume. Like, we've all agreed now that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a superstar target earner, and we just don't question that anymore. But there was a point in time people were like, Amon-Ra St. Brown can't go in the first round because he can't do what the other X receivers and outside receivers do. He's like more of a slot guy, and there are unique. It reminds me of Wes Welker with Tom Brady when I was playing PPR a long time ago. And Wes Welker in PPR was a beast. Even after Randy Moss, or before Randy Moss, there was a year where I think it was Welker and Gronk in 2011. Welker had 122 catches. He led the league in PPR, 173 targets. Nobody wanted to draft Wes Welker in PPR. I remember that year I was taking him like everywhere in like the 1-2 turn because I used to just love these guys that caught a bunch of balls in PPR leagues. 122 catches, like, yeah, I'll take that. It's his 30-year-old season. He wasn't like super athletic or anything, but you had Gronk, you had Aaron Hernandez, you had other threats in the passing game, which the Chiefs do have, and all the volume funneled to Welker because that's the way that offense was set up. He also had 123 catch season 2 years prior and 110 plus in 2007 and 2008. So 4 out of 5 years he had 5 out of 6 years he had 110 plus catches. That whole stretch, it was just like people didn't want to draft him because he's this short white dude, and it's like he's not anywhere near the elite receivers of the era, Randy Moss and all these guys. And that's what I hear when I hear the Rashee Rice stuff, is like he's nowhere near these other players. I don't care, man. It's fantasy football. Like, I understand if you're playing standard or even in maybe a little bit more in half PPR being a little lower on Rashee Rice, that's fair. Full PPR, which is like most of the stuff I play, if you look at like FFPC and stuff, you start getting a discount on a guy that can have 110 catches. I'm worried about the health, though. When Nate Taylor says clearing 900 yards is asking too much, that's scary. That's where it's like, all right, I'm out on this. Like that. So I don't have a clean answer, but I do think the Rashee Rice conversation misses the uniqueness of what he is and what the Chiefs situation is. So anyway, that was my Rice spiel.
Everything about the Chiefs, I think, is scary. It's like I don't feel good about any of this. I would feel terrible like betting a ton on Rice. I would feel terrible drafting no one on Patrick Mahomes' offense. I feel terrible drafting Xavier Worthy. I would feel terrible pinning it all on a 37-year-old. Like, I don't know. I feel like no matter what I end up with on the Chiefs, I do feel uncomfortable. But I think you talked through that very well. All right. Can we head to the NFC at an hour 47?
We're gonna breeze through the NFC.
All right, let's breeze through it. So the NFC East, we'll start off with, I saw you were getting into it a bit on Twitter about this one, but Jaden Blue has been deemed the juice back, and the idea that maybe that he seems to be in line for a real standalone role alongside Javonte Williams. There seems to be some skepticism about how much his role would grow without Javonte Williams. I've been following Zane Denani. He's been tracking all the beat reports on this. It does seem like Phil Maffa has received most of the non-blue reps with the ones, more so than Malik Davis, but I think that is very ambiguous. In the Eagles side of things, Mekhi Lemon, Devonta Smith, still out with hamstring injuries. Dontavian Wicks has been drawing constant praise. A lot of Eagles beats seemingly thinking he's entrenched as the wide receiver 2, at least to start the season in 2 wide receiver sets. And then, I mean, this is just catnip for me. Like, I can't wait to say this part, but I think it's Gary Mosier, says that Eli Stowers is struggling with the physicality of the game and might not be active for the first couple weeks of the season. So, maybe tight ends, they should get in there in the run blocking situations. At Washington,
wait, who was the beat there?
His last name was Mosier, and I think it's Gary.
Gary Mosier. Okay. Sorry.
I want to make sure that's. I hope that's true. I'll double check that the first name, because I only put the last name in here. So my apologies if I have the wrong first name. But at Washington, we're getting more positive buzz on Bill. There's been talk, especially from Ben Standig, that he's shown the improvement required in the receiving facet of the game to where they might be able to utilize him as more of a true RB1. But I'll note Rachaad White is also shining. He got the first snap with the ones and caught an angle route against Jordan Brooks in their recent joint practice. So I still view that as pretty ambiguous, but definitely encouraging notes for Bill. And then Jackson Dart, we just talked about the Chiefs. We're going to talk about Matt Nagy again, because he noted that Jackson Dart needs to work on seeing defenses, and the reports on the Giants offense not been particularly glowing. I will note that Malik Neighbors has mostly not been participating, I think to my knowledge, in any of like the full sessions. And so a lot of what the Giants offense is struggling with is a wide receiver room currently led by Malachi Fields, Darnell Mooney, Odell Beckham, Juju is involved. Darius Slayton, Braxton Berrios. Yeah, it's not a good group.
God, that wide receiver group is worse than the coaching staff. Didn't we just talk about the coaching staff? How they have all the guys that got replaced by all the young
Greg
coaches?
Roman, Brian Callahan, and Matt Nagy. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're wondering where all the guys who got replaced by the up-and-coming guys are, they're all in retirement home with John Harbaugh. Yeah, the Giant stuff is scary. I'm like, yeah, I think that's a team that can wind up being worse.
Sorry, it's Jeff, not Gary. Jeff Mosier. My apologies, Jeff.
Okay. That was a I misheard you. I was thinking something different. I'm gonna keep my thoughts to myself on what the listeners are like. What? Why were you asking that question? Anyway, the Giants I'm starting to get a little concerned about systematically, and I'm kind of down on Dart. I still want to take Neighbors, and then Scadaboo is kind of the tricky one. I'm pretty out on Likely as well, so I don't know if you have any big thoughts on them, but I'm not super excited about the Giants.
I think Dart is still a fun play as a quarterback play, just based on the rushing. But I've been getting colder feet by the day on that.
My thesis on that is they are talking about him running less because he keeps trying to get himself killed. If he runs less to not get himself killed, that's worse for fantasy. If he keeps running as much, he's going to get himself killed. I'd rather just take one of the more stable quarterbacks in that range.
Yeah, that's pretty darn fair. I'm going to put myself down as very skeptical that he's going to run less. I think players are who they are.
But he's going to get himself killed.
Well, he may get himself killed.
If you're in Superflex redraft, I just realized this the other day. People get worried about getting boxed out on QBs. Go take Jameis Winston really late. That's the guy that I want to stick.
This is the best case of all that I haven't heard from Malik Neighbors almost anywhere. Is like everyone wants to talk about how fragile Jackson Dart is. I mean, if he's truly fragile, then you get Jameis.
You get Jameis. You get Flamus. He's probably one. Like, people always want to know about the QB2 that's like worth drafting in Superflex in the very last round to stash. I think Jameis is legit worth that. I think he'll give you enough scoring if and when he would play. He has Malik Neighbors to throw it to, and he'll chuck the ball around. Like, I mean, I'm not saying like stash him the whole year, but he's worth like considering to see if Dart gets himself concussed early in the year. Like, anyway, Bill RB1 improving in the passing game is definitely exciting stuff. Don't have a ton on that. The Stowers thing I'm just going to completely ignore. Wick's balling. My thought on that was, I mean, I don't have Stowers high. Wick's balling was. My thought was, because Mekhi Lemon I obviously gave you really lofty thoughts on him recently. I think I said it on this show, but
Yeah.
feel really good about him. But the fact that he's out and we're probably going to get a little bit of a slower start, and Wicks is balling, and Wicks is going to be this number 2 early in the year, I'm kind of fading Devonta Smith because of Mekhi Lemon and the potential for Stowers. And now I'm like, man, maybe I need to move Devonta Smith back up a little bit, because maybe it will be the case where Devonta Smith is just the clear one, and Mekhi Lemon's going to need too much time to come along. I still don't love that, like, by the end of the season, you have Mekhi Lemon there to compete with. I also don't love playing Chris Olave for similar reasons. And Jordan Tyson has a thing now, which I'm sure we'll get to. But
It's on the sheet, yeah.
As we move forward with both those guys, they're rookie prospects that I really like. And even if they do have a slow start because of these camp injuries, like, that's not great for the second half of the year for sure. But made me think about the Devonta Smith thing as it related to the Lemon thing. And then the Cowboys backup situation, the Maffa thing is intriguing. I didn't know that. I got a lot of responses about Phil Maffa. I tweeted that I thought Malik Davis was the most draftable running back that's not widely drafted. If you talk about Jaden Blue being a juice back, and the quote that Davis Maddox shared was saying that, and it was saying that if Javonte Williams was out, that wouldn't change, and that somebody like Malik Davis would take the majority of the work. Now, I understand people. I mean, Malik Davis is going to be 28. Like, he's not really anything. But at the end of last year, he had a 100-yard game in his last game with on 20 carries. He was playing a lot more as Javonte Williams was nursing a little bit of a shoulder thing, and he was fairly effective. He had 4.8 yards per carry. He had some pretty good numbers in limited work. They've kept him around. They liked him a lot last year. They kept him ahead of Jaden Blue the whole time. I was like, dude, who's their backup? Malik Davis? Like, I was mocking that. He became their clear number 2, and then they sat him in Week 18 to play Blue and Maffa, and then they played a lot of Blue. They basically didn't use Maffa in that Week 18 game. This Phil Maffa stuff, I need you to tell me if I'm crazy, but there's like nothing in the profile. He's a big back. He's a yards after contact in theory, but Jaden Blue had more yards after contact per attempt in their relative collegiate careers. Like, he's not an actual yards after contact maven. His efficiency is not good. His missed tackles forced rate is not good. There's nothing in the receiving profile that's intriguing. His yards per carry not intriguing. He's just big, but he's not particularly fast either. Like, there's nothing to. He's just a big back that no one else in the league wanted to draft. He went in the 7th round. They know how heavy he is. There's not something like hidden here. Like, if there was something hidden, some other team would have wanted it. I don't understand why people are like, Phil Maffa is this surprisingly like notable player. Like, it's not a good profile.
I think I can provide the backstory on that, which is, so first of all, I agree. There's nothing in the Phil Maffa profile that jumps out at you at all. I mean, the best argument you can make for Phil Maffa is that Jaden Blue has not much if you look purely at like the rushing side. I think he has a lot of interesting stuff as a receiver. And then you just mentioned Malik Davis is like a total guy. So, if you want to tell me that Phil Maffa could beat out those two for rushing work, like, that seems plausible. But Phil Maffa in a vacuum, I think the reason why there's a lot of latent enthusiasm for Phil Maffa from some corners is Will Shipley used to be like a huge name in Devy circles. Obviously didn't really pan out, but he was like at a time viewed as a potential, day 1, day 2 prospect. And he got a lot of his lunch eaten by a freshman Phil Maffa way back at Clemson, who like came in, immediately stole work from a guy that was really highly regarded at the time. And so a lot of people had a lot of enthusiasm for Maffa going back to his freshman season at Clemson. Nothing ever happened to that, but there's like a lot of Phil Maffa truthers out there who have like a Devy bag packed full of Phil Maffa. So he's like a higher pedigree guy. You know who the comp is? It's funny because he played on the Cowboys too, but it's Bo Scarborough, who was another guy who like played at a big program and people knew a lot about despite not really doing anything. The Cowboys love these guys. They got Mike Weber too, who was like an Ohio State guy who wasn't really anything. Anyway, maybe Jerry Jones plays Devy. I'm not sure, but that's the Phil Maffa backstory.
He, by his 4th year in college, had his first 1,000-yard rushing season. Played 14 games, 13 games, 14 games with Clemson. Those final 3 years. So got a ton of college games, and mean, he had an 1,100-yard rushing season in 14 games. Like, at college, that's not that impressive, dude. You got to do more than that to impress
Yeah,
me.
and he had 5.2 yards per carry, which, like, I mean, like, you know,
That's
yards
not
per
good.
carry is yards per carry, but, like, it's not very impressive at the college level.
That was his last year. His career high was 5.4.
Yeah.
Like, he never had a 5.5. Like that would be good at the NFL level. In college, dudes rush for 6+. Like, you better, if you're an NFL prospect, you better rush for 6+. Like, you better rush for, give me 7. Give me, a Keaton Mitchell 7.2 or whatever he had that one year. Anyway, obviously Phil Maffa doesn't have to be Keaton Mitchell, who's the greatest of all time. Let's next division.
All right, perfect. Let's do the NFC North. So, I mean, the biggest news here, we have some real big news, which is Kyler Murray confirmed the starting quarterback. I wouldn't say it's shocking news, but nice to have confirmed. Green Bay, we got some potential news on Josh Jacobs. So Adam Schefter recently stated that he clarified that there are a number of different disciplinary situations that remain under review, and he mentioned Josh Jacobs, and then we'll get to the NFC West at the end. He mentioned Puka Nacua as well. Said that it's currently under review. Said that it could result in a suspension. Certainly didn't say it necessarily would. But interestingly, he did confirm, or at least I interpreted as confirming, that they will make a decision on that one way or another before the start of the season, or at least said that was highly likely, which in like a functional world shouldn't be news, but in the NFL, it seems like the disciplinary process is so random and like you never know when the guy is going to get suspended or not suspended, or if it's being reviewed or not being reviewed. So that was notable to me, that like it seems like the result is that Jacobs will either be not suspended or he will be suspended this year at the start of the season. It won't be like a 2027 thing. And he's also not practicing right now. He's out apparently another week with a groin issue. Marshawn Lloyd played, at least on the first drive, he played 100% of the snaps with the starters in preseason just now. And more live news from preseason snap tracking is 9 snaps with the starters. And that was 9 snaps for Matthew Golden, all at X. 8 snaps for Christian Watson at Z, 7 snaps for Jaden Reed, only in 3 receiver sets, and who played the 1 snap that Christian Watson came out of the game for was Savion Williams, not sliding Jaden Reed over to Z. So we might get the same old bullshit from the Green Bay Packers, or you could choose to not read into 9 snaps, but I wouldn't say it's an encouraging development if you're hoping for 2 receiver set Jaden Reed this year.
Yeah, no, that's not great. It is encouraging for Matthew Golden, who's still missed.
Very. Lions news. I mean, I do want to stress it's 9 plays, but yeah, I agree. And then the Lions news: Isaiah Pacheco, who's been drafted really high for reasons that I'm not particularly aware of. He sprained his MCL. Probably back for week 1.
Probably the worst pick in that entire range.
It's been really bizarre. And then the Bears, I mentioned this earlier. Luther Burden had a groin strain. Is likely to going to miss the preseason. There does seem to be a lot of optimism he'll be back for week 1, but going to miss at least a few weeks of training camp here, probably the rest of the preseason. Any thoughts on any NFC North news? I'm
bumping Adunze and Loveland. I think that's going to be a concentrated passing game. I think we talked about that. And I'm legitimately concerned. I understand, like, all the doctors came out on social and said he's going to be back for week 1. He's going to be fine, all this stuff. I'm excited about Burden. The concern is we want him to go from not 100% route rate all year. Like, he never got over like 70% even late in the year when Loveland was running 80% plus, and Burden was higher than Loveland early in the year. So like, it wasn't, Loveland took that traditional rookie ramp up period and late in the year was running 80% plus routes for 4 games in a row. Early in the year had been really low because he needed to learn stuff or whatever. Burden was higher than him early, but still never got all the way to full time because he wasn't able to do everything they wanted him to do. When I went through the projection process, I was like, this is going to be a really concentrated team. I think Burden has to run the route. So now I understand his ADP. Well, now he's going to miss all of camp. Like, you're telling me, like, no, they're going to lean on Khalif Raymond early more than they want to. They're going to play Ja'Day Walker early. Like, they're not going to push Luther Burden early in the year when he didn't play at all in camp, or I don't think. I mean, I'm still very optimistic overall, but I am a little bit concerned that especially like the other issue is that groins can linger, and this is a legitimate groin injury. And he's had soft tissue stuff. He didn't run a ton of routes throughout his college career for different reasons. The fact that the way I would put it is missing all of August is not great for the thesis that he's going to go play 17 games and run more routes than he's ever run at college or in the pros, and he's going to scale up and stay healthy the whole time. Like, it's a tough bet to be like he's going to go play 17 games and run a ton of routes. I'm concerned.
I mean, I think your concerns are fair. I do feel as though, despite how fair those concerns are, that this is a spot that I think has gotten like almost outsized scrutiny in terms of the impact. Like, there's a lot of guys who are missing time in training camp that I feel like go very under the radar. Like, Devonta Smith hasn't practiced 2 weeks, nobody cares. Mike Evans hasn't practiced 2 weeks, nobody cares. Now, Mekhi Lemon hasn't practiced 2 weeks. A lot of people care, and that makes sense because he's a rookie. And in the world where you want him playing in 2 receiver sets, he has to cross-train positions probably because he's going to have to learn the F in 3 receiver sets. He's going to have to learn the Z in 2 receiver sets. And I think the question comes down to, like, where does Burden slide on this scale? Do they view him as a player who has already developed to the degree that they need him to or close to it, and that they can just drop him in week 1, all their plans to be a full-time guy? Or is he still a guy that they needed to see more development from? And I don't know. I'm probably more optimistic that it's the former. Like, I don't think that we'll see him have a limited route rate in week 1 if he's gets in a full week of practice ahead of that, which he should, assuming it's a grade 1 strain. But I hear your concerns. I guess, like, all in all,
I'm not out.
I would rather draft Burden. I would rather have the, like, 1-round discount to draft Luther Burden with slightly more risk than to have taken him where he was going previously, which I was still willing to do. But I'm probably a little bit more excited about playing the discount here.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize there was going to be like a substantial discount.
Well, I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's been falling, but like I don't know exactly where he'll finish.
It's interesting that, like, sort of your perception is that it's gotten too much scrutiny, because a big part of my perception was based on seeing multiple tweets right away from, like, the Twitter docs that were like, he'll be fine. Don't move him anywhere in your ranks. And everyone, like, retweeting and be like, yeah, it's a non-issue. And I'm like, well, no, it's kind of an issue. Like, he needed to have a good August so that we felt good that he'd be playing every down, because he didn't do that last year. Like, this is a new thing for him. He needs to be getting these reps and learning more of the offense. He missed part of camp last year, and Ben Johnson had that quote that we all remember that was like, yeah, it's not good that he's not in here learning as a rookie. And then it kind of carried into his playing time last season, right? Like, that was his rookie year. I get it. But this is not ideal. Like, in terms of, like, I understand that the doctors are saying it from a pure health perspective, that this shouldn't linger into the season. And I'm optimistic about hearing that. And I appreciate that take from the people that know better than me, that this is not like a high re-injury concern and all of these things, and it shouldn't be too long of a concern. And we did see him out there on the field, like, walking, and he didn't, like, have a limp.
Yeah, that was something that I think sometimes we do this, and it sometimes doesn't matter as much as we say. Like, per the doctors, again, I'm not one, like you said, the people who know more than us. Per the doctors, that was meaningful because apparently, basically, if you have a grade 1 groin sprain, you can look completely fine walking around. You still can't, like, run routes and stuff. But if you have a grade 2 groin strain, they said, 24 hours after injuring it, there's no way he would look that good. And so the grade 1 strain apparently is more of like a 2 to 3 week timeline. And so the read on that from the doctors is that some of, like, the month talk, probably more precautionary, that's about, like, okay, he's not going to play in preseason, but it seemed like people were confident he's still going to get a week or 2 of full practices in before the season starts. And if he's able to do that, like, he also had a really, really strong start to camp, where he was drawing nothing but strong reviews, was consistently involved, practicing in full. So I think as long as he can combine, that really strong start to camp with coming back, with a full week or 2 of practice ahead of the first game, my concerns would be alleviated. But I definitely agree with you that, yeah, if there's a possibility that timeline's not totally sure, and he's, like, not getting back to practice until the lead up to game day, maybe he's even getting limited practices in before week 1. Yeah, I mean, you'd rather play Rome Odunze in week 1 probably than Luther Burden, if that's the case. I should say, when I'm saying nothing.
I was saying I'm moving a Dunze up. I still have Burden ahead of a Dunze. I've had Burden as a target, and I moved a Dunze. I had him like a tier apart, and I've moved the Dunze into the same tier and a couple spots behind Burden, and I'm more intrigued by the prospect of playing a Dunze at this point, because I do think it's going to be a highly concentrated offense, and they may need to lean on him more. But no, I'm still in on Burden. I'm not trying to say I'm out on Burden. But anyway, we were just kind of talking through.
I have a wider gap between them, I think, than you do still. But I did move Rome a bit up. In my heart, I've moved Loveland up. I don't know how much more I can move him up, so I don't think I actually moved him up in my rankings because I'm already so aggressive on him. But it's only furthered my conviction in wanting to play Colston Loveland, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a fun play. The Golden stuff that you mentioned from the preseason, I think is legitimate, interesting. How high are you wanting to go on Golden?
Pretty high. I mean, I have him ranked like solidly above consensus in all formats. Well, here's an interesting one. So we had, here's a choice you will actually have to make in FFPC drafts. We talked about this guy earlier today. Would you rather have Xavier Worthy or Matthew Golden?
Yeah, I have him back to back. I just moved Golden ahead of Worthy. I've had Worthy ahead of Golden, but Golden I think is getting more expensive and Worthy's not. So it's more just a price thing at this point. But that's a group that I've been saying for like months is a really, and I was like to the point where I was talking about Pearsall in that group as well, and then Jordan Addison, and I'm like, this is like way too cheap for all these guys. Like I love being in this pocket of receivers. Pearsall's obviously no longer in the equation. Addison, I don't know. Maybe I'll move those guys over Addison. I had Addison higher than them. I think his ADP is a little bit higher now. But I question if I'm not high enough on Golden. I think he's going to continue to rise.
I feel similarly. I also have them back to back. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, what would you do about Golden versus like Reed? What would you do? I was going to say about like Marvin Harrison, Brian Thomas are guys that I have a hard time with. That's a lot higher. But
I'm way more in on Harrison than you, so that is a complete tier difference of player.
Okay.
I would rather have Golden than Worthy. I'd rather have him than Addison. I think he's a target in that tier. I also agree that tier is undervalued. In a shallower league, so like a non-FFPC in a home league where you're starting two receivers and a flex, and I'm going purely on upside, I think I'd rather have Golden than like Chris Godwin. I'm wondering if I might rather just have Matthew Golden than Mekhi Lemon with some of the injury concerns and stuff with Lemon, and the potential slow start factor there. I don't have it ranked that way yet, but I'm open-minded to that. The next guy up after those would be Reed in my rankings. I think I'll keep Reed ahead because I do feel a lot better about the player and the target earner that Reed is. And I guess I do find it a little bit hard to imagine that now that it's consolidated to these three guys, that like it will be as simple as Reed literally never plays a two receiver set. You know, like maybe that's easy to do on one preseason drive. I think that's harder to do game to game to game. Like, even if we can just get Reed to play in like 20% of the two receiver sets or a third of the two receiver sets, like that would still be a meaningful amount, especially if it's a meaningful amount that might come directly at Golden's expense or Watson's expense. But I do think that the three Green Bay receivers should be a lot closer together. And I consider Reed to be a soft target and Golden to be a pretty big target. Now, in like, I say all that because I've been like in the underdog world, I've been in the FFPC world. You know, if you go in an ESPN league right now, Matthew Golden has a higher ADP than Jaden Reed. So then it's a pretty different conversation in terms of the value. And like, I guess the question would be, should that be a different conversation in terms of how you rank it? You know, you don't want to get anchored to what the environment you've been drafting in for 5 months. I think I still do prefer Reed straight up, but it is close, and I might have them like back to back. How about you?
Yeah, I have them very close as well. That's very similar to the range. I mean, I'm lower on Harrison as you noted, so I have Harrison not much higher than that. I'm looking more at ADP now to see the names that are in between them and Harrison, and like I have Metcalf meaningfully higher than those guys, and I have Downs higher. I have Lemon last of a tier right now, but I've debated moving him down. And then I have Brian Thomas and Marvin Harrison leading the next tier after that. And like Quentin Johnson's in this range, and I have Quentin Johnson even further back. But then after Thomas Harrison, who I've also debated, like, do I have them buried too far? Because I don't have them as fades. I just think they're hard plays. But I go Reed, Godwin, Addison, Golden, Worthy right now. And like, I don't want to be out on Godwin, so I moved him up there. I don't think I need Addison that high. I haven't really actually been excited to collect him very much.
You can get Addison a bit later too.
I didn't really. I'm not like drafting daily right now, and so I'm not.
Well, it depends on the form. It depends on the format and depends on the. It's like it really depends on platform. So like on Underdog, Addison goes ahead of Worthy and Golden. On FFPC,
think that's what I was
he
looking
goes
at.
the opposite. So
Okay.
it's like it really depends where you're drafting.
And I think it makes more sense for him to go after. Like, just my intuition. I'm more optimistic about ceiling cases for Golden and Worthy. I mean, obviously Addison has Justin Jefferson, so you're just,
I'd argue that the markets are both efficient, honestly. Like, I think Addison I have way more confidence in as this is a good player than Worthy and Golden.
Sure.
But, like, it's really hard to see a scenario outside of a Justin Jefferson injury in which Jordan Addison is, like, a massive story of the season type player. Whereas, we outlined like the precarity of the Chiefs situation and Worthy's unique upside. And it is like quite easy for me to envision a scenario where Matthew Golden is the highest scoring player on the Green Bay Packers. And like, so I think that the true ceiling outcome, which is what I'm, especially in this range, like this is the range where you're really not drafting these guys as starters, as week one starters in your lineup for the most part, maybe the last starter in your lineup. This is an area of the draft where I really think you should be ceiling optimized, right? Especially in like a redraft scenario, be that on FFPC or in a home league. And so when you get into that, I think that pushes guys like Worthy and Golden, where the like 90th plus percentile outcome, I think is more enticing than Addison's.
Yeah. All right, we talked Bears and Packers. You mentioned Kyler starting. I think that was kind of expected. That is sort of the Vikings deal. Pacheco, MCL, we were just saying not really in on. The Lions are going to be super concentrated. They gave Pacheco 1 year under $2 million, and he hasn't been very good the last couple of years. It's a name value thing. So if you're wondering why we were both like, this is not – he's a bad pick. The reason he goes where he goes is like fantasy players think Isaiah Pacheco is more than the league does. No one wanted to pay him more than $2 million on a 1 year deal. He was a 7th-round pick. He wasn't very good. He got hurt a couple years ago. Has not been the same player. It's not just that he's the clear backup or you think he's the clear backup. It's can he produce when he gets in if he does get in? Because if he can't, they'll just find another backup. They'll bring somebody else in, like something you've talked about. Maybe they'll bring in James Conner or something. Isaiah Pacheco's not even a lock to be the number 2 to start the season. Now he has an MCL injury. I don't think you want to be on Isaiah Pacheco right now.
No. I'd be honestly really surprised if they don't bring in a meaningful running back addition. Like that's pretty fresh. Unless, I don't know, maybe Silent Vaki's having the camp of his life. But I think
somebody will threaten Pacheco because he's not like on his merits. He's not going to be a reliable number 2 to be like a workhorse if Gibbs got hurt. And the fact that people are playing it like that's clear is a massive miss in my opinion. Like they're just lost. I've had him ranked really, really low. Anyway.
And the easy thing to point out with that spot is it is like really, really likely that one of Trey Benson or James Conner, if not both, are not on the Cardinals to start the season. And the OC for last year's Cardinals is the Lions OC. So he has familiarity with both of those guys.
Love it. All right, NFC South.
All right, so you mentioned it earlier. Jordan Tyson, hamstring. I mean, he had been having a really strong camp, it seemed like, until that. So super unfortunate. This one, like, we had Nick Underhill tweet out that the belief is that it's not super serious. My first question is about the English language. When you say something is not super serious, does the not only cancel out the super such that it is still serious? It's
Only a lawyer would come to that.
I'm just like, I don't like this. If he had said it's not serious, that sounds great. Not super serious is like, well, still a little serious. So anyway, I mean, I also just like, Jordan Tyson and hamstring. That's two things I don't want to see together. Like long history of hamstring issues.
I would
for
like
Jordan
his
Tyson.
hamstring to stay attached. I would like to see them together. You're saying you would like it torn off the bone. No.
Well, I just don't want
English language, Jacob. You're saying you
Yeah,
don't want his
all right.
hamstring attached to him
No,
anymore.
I'm saying. Oh, I see. Yeah, I just don't want to see anything. I don't want to see a tweet ever that has Jordan Tyson bracket hamstring involved.
Yes.
you know,
No, I don't want to see that either.
That's just like. So I don't know what to do with this. I mean, I assume even if it's minor, that you can add a week or two extra to whatever the timeline would be. I mean, this is a guy who missed a ton of the offseason program with a hamstring issue. It's a guy who missed multiple stretches of his last college season with a hamstring issue. It's a guy who missed previous college seasons with a hamstring issue. Like, it's an issue. It's kind of the whole reason. Well, I shouldn't say the whole reason. It is one of the biggest reasons he wasn't the consensus wide receiver one in this class, is the injury proneness and specifically this chronic hamstring issue. And so
How far
it's
are you
really,
moving him
really
down?
not ideal.
I dropped him a tier and behind
Oh, man.
some other dudes. How far?
Well, so like this happened today and I was writing, so I haven't even like gotten the chance to actually do it yet. But I mean, I had him as a target and I'm changing that.
Interesting.
don't
I'm
know
moving him down, but I still want him. He's still a profile I want to target in builds.
Well, I don't know how far he's going to move down, so maybe he moves down a
Fair.
lot and then I can re-add the target. But I guess what I'm saying is I would no longer target him at the like
You're
ADP
doing the
that he had
targets more
before,
based
and-
on like ADP. Yeah. I do targets more
Yeah.
like on profile, where it's
Fair
like, you know,
enough.
there's different
Yeah.
sites and different ADPs and stuff, but
That's fair.
you have different ranks for your different sites. I just have one ranking set, so it's
Right,
more
that's
like
very
these
fair.
are. This is a kind of player that I could build around still.
Yeah, so I had him ranked. Like I'd move him down. I already had him behind Harrison because Harrison's a much more of a priority for me. But I had him ahead of Rome. I'm going to move him behind Rome. I had him at a Metcalf. I'm probably going to move him behind Metcalf, which that would mean moving him down a tier. So I guess my answer is the same, that I will move him down a tier. I don't know if I'd move him behind Brian Thomas. I might. I probably wouldn't move him behind Josh Downs because there's just such a wide ADP difference that like
That's where I stopped.
once I move someone behind Josh Downs, that means you can't draft them anymore because
Yeah.
Josh Downs like 3 rounds at ADP.
I have Cardinal Tate right behind Josh Downs for that reason. Not for
nice.
that reason.
Yeah,
but
there
yeah.
you go.
But I have Downs really high.
Yeah,
But
it's a
I also
scary
have
one. It's a
Devontae
player
Adams.
I love. Oh,
Yeah,
really? You have
yeah,
Devontae
so-
Adams behind Josh Downs? Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams is undraftable. Let's be honest.
That was all right. There you go. That's the show. 2 hours 21 seconds. 2 hours 21 minutes. Devontae Adams is undraftable.
I mean,
But
did
yeah,
you
this is-
see
this is
any
not-
of his numbers other than the 14 TDs last year?
They're not great.
And then they were trying to trade him the whole offseason. They they told him they wanted to trade him, and then they were not satisfied with AJ Brown's knee and some other things. But like, yeah, the T-Ferg hype is coming at Devontae Adams' expense. They're going to find other things to do with all those air yards that he couldn't catch.
Yeah. Super excited about Terrence Ferguson. I haven't read your tight end tiers list, but do you have a nice target on T Ferg, I hope?
I've got a target on him. The problem is how high he continues to rise. I have him at like
yeah.
I'm moving him
Continues
up.
to rise, but he can't catch my
After our last talk, I moved him ahead of Gadsden. You get props for that.
There we go.
I think I mentioned that you convinced me on the last episode in a rankings update where I noted that I'd move Ferguson ahead of him, but I don't. I mean, I want to keep moving him up, but it's like at a certain there's a lot of uncertainty to the bat. Like,
yeah,
it's not,
I mean he's another format dependent guy, right? Like if you're in a redraft league, there's a pretty low opportunity cost, which is like my recommendation is just he should be your last pick in all of these. But it's a higher opportunity cost, obviously, in like a best ball scenario, an FFPC scenario, because yeah, he is like he's the where he's moving up to is where you're gonna have to take him in an FFPC league where floor at tight end is pretty darn meaningful because of the extra tight end premium point. Like you're gonna have to probably take him maybe if the hype keeps moving like over Brenton Strange or Dalton Schultz or Jawan Johnson even potentially, and that's where like that's where if it's a total air ball, that hurts you.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get to the NFC West in a second.
Yeah.
Though. Let's. So you did the Tyson Hammy and I cut in, but what do you have for the rest of the NFC South?
Yeah, Tyson Hammy, scary. Ibuka toe seems to be not that scary. It's said to be a minor toe injury, but that was my main note on the Bucs. And then Carolina, we got a transaction. Darren Waller has signed with the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, that happened yesterday. Yesterday evening. So Darren Waller's now a member of the Carolina Panthers. We get your extremely live reaction to this because this is brand new information. I'm
pumped about that. Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited about that. That's pretty cool for him, and it's pretty cool for the Panthers. One of the things when I did my projections and talked about the Panthers' offense, I emphasized that their tight ends were not good last year. Mitchell Evans had the best yards per out run, very limited routes. Tommy Tremble has led the tight ends in routes the last few years. He's run like 240, 250, but sub 1 yards per out run every year. But he like rotationally runs enough routes to like also affect the other guys. Jatavian Sanders, you were hoping for a little bit more in year 2. It actually went the other way, if I'm not mistaken. His yards per out run kind of got worse. He hasn't had a huge sample size, so I remember I contrasted him to Xavier Legette and was like, Legette's ran way more routes. I'm way more confident Legette sucks at this point, but Jatavian Sanders probably looks like he's not a thing, but maybe there's still some potential there. But that was their like 3 tight end situation, and none of them looked exciting, and they were going to rotate. I was going to say rotational, but then I just decided to say rotate with the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Darren Waller is going to take some type of rotational routes role, but be an actual threat in the receiving game. He looked pretty decent still last year with the Dolphins, always been a talented receiver. That comment you just made that you think he's draftable, I think is pretty interesting. I think he's probably still, a low bet, a slim bet to have like a massive number of routes. So I agree with you. He's probably draftable, but he's probably back there with the T. Fergs of the world. But he should be their if he's healthy, he should be their most productive tight end in receiving yardage. And I think their third most productive player probably, because Xavier Legette's bad. Though I was excited about, them getting Brazel or Brazel or whatever. I can't say the guy's name. Brazel the Gazelle.
Brazel. Razzle dazzle Brazel.
Razzle dazzle Brazel as their third receiver. Now you have Waller to be that third guy and draw some coverage and do some things to free up Coker and McMillan.
And as a tight end, you can get kind of vertical, like one of the few. Yeah.
Should be good for McMillan. Should be good for Coker. I'm excited. I mean, it's a fun fit. They needed another legitimate receiving threat, and there's not a lot of guys out there that are legitimate receiving threats in August, but Darren Waller could be that to the extent that he can run 300 routes.
Yeah, when he was active for the Dolphins last year, he was legitimately productive. He had a real role, and it was a little volatile because the routes are going to be up and down, but I think he had 3 top 6 weeks at the tight end position last year. I'm pretty sure that's correct. So he's an interesting guy. I would view it like from a role perspective. I think he would run like the Jatavian Sanders routes in terms of like he was the guy who was kind of used most as the receiving only tight end. So I think Sanders kind of goes like pretty darn close to 0, honestly. And if you were bullish on anyone to consolidate the tight end position previously, I think Mitchell Evans was probably the best bet for that. But that obviously I think now is more unlikely. I think Mitchell Evans will be used more as an inline guy. They're going to find some role for Tremble probably, and then Waller. Yeah, I would expect Waller to be like a low snap rate, much higher routes rate than snap rate player. Like I could see some weeks where he's like 60% of the routes on 30% of the snaps almost for him, where he's used pretty situationally. I think that would be wise given his health. But I could see weeks where they throw to him a lot for sure.
Darren Waller or I'm going to give you some one-on-ones. Darren Waller or Gunnar Helm?
I'll go Helm.
Darren Waller or Cade Otton?
Ooh, best ball Otton. Redraft, give me Waller. Yeah, FFPC, give me Waller.
Darren Waller or Greg Dulcich?
That's an interesting one. Similar. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Dulcich is going to have the higher route rate, but like on how many dropbacks? I think I go Dulcich.
Darren Waller. Okay. Darren Waller or I mean, I have AJ Barner lower than that. Eli Raritan, Darren Waller, Eli Raritan.
I'm going Waller. I think.
There you go, Darren Waller, or like, what about like Barner or like Evan Ingram or Mike Gesicki or those dudes?
Definitely going Waller over Ingram and Gesicki. I think I would stick with Barner, but in like in FFP, like it really depends on the format. Like in best ball, Waller's a bit scary because like no one would be shocked if he plays like 2 games, his hamstring falls off the bone, and that's that for the career. But in a league where you have to start a guy, I do think we'll probably get some weeks where Waller like projects well and you start him reasonably confidently.
Darren Waller or Eli Stowers?
Definitely Darren Waller. Oh man.
What else do we got?
All right. We got one. Oh, this one is like, I heard this yesterday because Pat told me this, and it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Kevin Stefanski has apparently started this thing at the end of practice that they call opportunity period at Falcons camp, which is like for players that don't have a secure role yet and younger players to only play like with and against each other while the starters and veterans rest. And Zachariah Branch was playing an opportunity period for much of the offseason, and this recently he's stopped. And so one of the beat writers wrote that he's graduated from opportunity period university and into contention for the starting lineup.
Oh my God.
Is there anything lamer than opportunity period university?
No, that was bad. But
should you draft any Falcon Branch after hearing that? Like
no,
that made me want to move down B-Shot. Like I'm like I can't be associated with opportunity period.
That made me want to move down B-Shot as the quote of the show. That's incredible. The Ibuka toe, not bad, right?
It's supposed to be minor. Yeah, and I mean like, so I'm not massively concerned.
What is
supposed to be minor? Well, it means that like, it means I haven't examined his toe. I don't know. The viewers say it's considered minor.
It means I haven't examined his toe. All right.
Like we're talking about a Todd Bowles team. Like I don't know, like whatever the Coach Speak Index reliability meter is on Todd Bowles is like
negative.
He just says
he might have a toe and he might not. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe next winter we'll figure it out.
Right. Like I don't know what anything means, but it's supposed to be minor.
Cool. All right. Next.
All right. We got one division left.
Yeah.
Last division. Finally, we're gonna get this under 3 hours. Zach Charbonnet is accordingly ahead of schedule. This is per. Oh my God! I really wish that I put down the first names for these. Mr. Nemhauser said Charbonnet is ahead of schedule, could return much earlier than expected, and might not even be on the PUP list. And I will also note Jadarian Price missed some time with some tightness, some soreness. He's back at camp, and he's going to be hopefully fine. And I think in his first practice back, he was reported to have taken the first snap with the ones, even ahead of Mr. Holani. So Charbonnet.
I think it's Brian Nemhauser. I think that's Hawk Blogger.
Okay. It is Hawk Blogger. It's definitely Hawk Blogger. Yeah.
Say that again. Charbonnet ahead of schedule. I wasn't listening to the audience.
Yeah, Brian Nemhauser, Hawk Blogger, was talking about Zach Charbonnet. He said the recovery's going great. He's ahead of schedule, and that he had said people have been expecting he won't be back until October or November, but he thinks that there's a chance that he will beat that and might not even be on PUP to start the season.
Okay, cool. Next.
And then we got Carson Beck. Played honestly, he balled the hell out in the Hall of Fame game last week, and but then did not. He won't be playing in the game that's happening right now. He had a minor rib injury. That's also supposed to be minor. So unfortunately, he couldn't keep that momentum. But was really impressed by him in the Hall of Fame game. And he, that's pretty meaningful. He might play games at the end of the season. And then we had Puka Nacua in one of the. I talked about it. You don't want Jordan Tyson bracket hamstring. There was an underdog alert regarding this one. You never want your name bracket anti-Semitism /biting. That's never anything you want to be in a headline. And Puka Nacua did have the bracket anti-Semitism biting, where, to summarize, Adam Schefter, as I mentioned in the Josh Jacobs section, that Puka Nacua is situation remains under review. So there's some risk of suspension, I suppose, with him. We'll probably find that out sooner or later. He also picked up a minor injury in camp. I think it's supposed to be fine from a health standpoint. And then the last team on the list, the 49ers.
Yeah, I was supposed to let you go through all of it, but what are you doing with Puka?
Dude, it's tough. So I mean, I said we drafted this main event yesterday, and as luck would have it, like what slot do we pick but the frickin' 104? And so we had to immediately confront this question. You know, do you take Puka where we would have probably all happily done so the previous day? Really tough pair to. Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I voted for Puka. But I totally get why we took Bowers. So I wrote up Puka super favorably. I had him as my 103 solidly above Chase. I think he should even be in consideration to be the 102 above Bijan if everything is all good on health and discipline.
That's interesting. I didn't know we were so locked on Puka, but that's exactly the way that I've been looking at him. But I just flipped him behind Chase as you told me that I didn't hear the Schefter thing, that the suspension was still under review. If that's the case, then I moved him back a spot behind Chase now.
Would you move him behind JSN? That's been the tough one for me.
That's why I asked. Yeah.
Because I do think that I kind of did immediately, like especially in my best ball rankings. But I think if I was on the clock in the 104, it's just my team, I'm probably still taking him above JSN because I do think he projects pretty meaningfully better on a week-to-week basis.
And it's not going to be like
suspended. He might be suspended not at all. And if he is suspended, it's probably 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you know, you get in this scenario where, like, you have a 50%
famously,
chance of winning
anti-Semitism / biting is more of a 1 or 2 game suspension.
Yeah, you get 1 for each.
My God.
But maybe they're served concurrently. You know, it's like when you get, like, if you like go into a liquor store, you rob a liquor store at gunpoint and you kill the guy, it's like you get charged for murder and for aggravated assault, but you could serve them concurrently instead of consecutively. Maybe he only gets 1 game total. He gets to serve them concurrently.
He gets to serve. God. It feels bad. It feels bad.
I mean, my read. This is pure conjecture. But if you watch the Schefter video, the way he phrased it, he said there is a possibility that when the Rams kick off their season in Australia against the 49ers, that Puka Nacua will not be in the lineup. My read on that was he is going to get 1 game and exactly 1 game. But that's like purely me inferring something from what Adam Schefter said and how he phrased it, which could be completely baseless. But that was the inference that I personally made.
I'm not even really up on what he did. I remember seeing the reports, but anyway,
he did anti-Semitism /
he did anti-Semitism. It's not funny, but it's a little funny that's the. Oh man! All right, what else do we got from the Niners?
The last one on my list is just
and Puka's hurt too. You also said injury.
Yes, he also suffered a minor injury.
Sick.
It's been said by everybody he's minor, but and then 49ers, the last two on my list. So we got continued strong buzz on DeJon Stribling. Our guy Grant Cohn, who I'll just say it, sometimes there's some performative elements in his reporting style.
There's a Shipley. He's more than Shipley.
No, we're not going to put him in the same. We're not going to put these two in the same category.
Okay. All right.
Oh, my goodness. But he said, he's been talking up Stribling. He said he's the best wide receiver in camp. Now, granted, Mike Evans doesn't practice in 2 weeks. But he's been the best wide receiver in camp. He said he outplayed Carnell Tate in the joint practice. He's the best rookie receiver in the class. Stole his chain, all that stuff. And then the other fun thing is that they've been dealing with just a million running back injuries, including even Christian McCaffrey has been missing time with tightness, they've been calling it. And Deebo Samuel's been taking some snaps at running back. So maybe we get the wide back. And my point on that is that's great for Deebo. It's also, I think, great for Stribling.
Yeah. I think it's great for the offense. It makes a lot of sense because they don't have a backup. and they actually could spell McCaffrey some with Debo. Like, they could legitimately do some of the McCaffrey stuff with Debo. They were starting to do some interchangeable stuff with those guys. They were putting Debo in the backfield and putting McCaffrey at wide receiver to, like, just change things up. Like, a couple years ago, obviously when Debo was still with the Niners, before McCaffrey was hurt. The Stribling best wide receiver in camp. The note, obviously, that's interesting there is, Evans was out with a quad. Evans back yesterday, I saw, is another piece of news that I can give you. I'm not as low on Evans as, like, Devonta Adams, for example. Still earned a lot of volume last year, and I think there's real potential for him to be the clear number one. The thing about me being out on Adams is it's kind of contingent on Puka Nacua not biting people. So, if Puka Nacua is suspended, you're in a tough spot with Devonta Adams.
It's possible that fading Adams could come back to bite you.
Damn, that was all right. I love a dad joke.
I saw that one right into the glove.
Yeah, you did. You nailed it. We're so deep into this recording, it's absurd. Stribling continues to get buzz. We knew that. We talked about it earlier even. But this Debo stuff is pretty interesting. I've raised him up quite a bit. What about, I'm sure you're taking Diggs over Debo, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have Diggs or Debo that far behind him. I have him 6 wide receiver spots behind him.
Let me see how many more I have.
How far up is Diggs
figure
going?
Out what rankings I'm looking at.
Diggs
is going pretty high. So, this is the same main event team. We took Diggs.
Diggs is going on underdog. He's going over Worthy and Golden already, and Wan'Dale Robinson. And Concepcion. People just hate those receivers. That's crazy. I understand the bull case for Diggs, but I feel like we're just gonna blow him past these other receivers is kind of nuts to me. But go for it. I won't be dropping a lot of Diggs
that way.
Yeah, I won't have a lot of Diggs. Debo, wide receiver 55 here. Yeah, I have him right at 55. And so Diggs is going 46. He's going 9 spots higher. I have Diggs at 49. And that's despite having, Quentin Johnston behind him and Cortland Sutton behind him. So there's several guys behind Diggs that I have ranked ahead of Diggs.
Right.
But
so I'm checking out. I have Diggs at wide receiver. I do him at wide receiver 46. So I think that's exactly what he is going as. But I also have exactly the names you just said. Quentin Johnston at 47 and Sutton at 48. I have Debo at. Well, I have Debo lower in my. Quite a bit lower actually in my redraft stuff. I have him a lot higher in best ball, but I'm down at 60 in redraft.
Okay.
So that's behind. Part of it is just I don't know. That's pretty format specific. To me, if it's a managed league, I'm starting 2 receivers in a flex. I'm just pretty confident I'm going to get receivers that I think that have a high enough floor that I don't need Debo. And I'm pretty bearish on the true upside case on him at this age. But do you see him having top 24 upside on a sustained basis?
No, but I think in managed he could have spurts of interesting usability potentially if the usage is interesting, and then you're kind of plug and playing him. I don't know that I
should move him up if there's a lot of contingent upside with McCaffrey. That's probably something I wasn't really factoring in.
Jacoby Myers and Romeo Doubs versus Debo is they're going ahead of him, but that's interesting to me. Yeah,
that's a pretty fair point.
I have him. I currently have him ranked between them. I have both those guys as fades a little bit behind their ADP.
Yeah.
I currently have them back to back to back, right. So anyway,
I could have them in that same group because I have Myers at 53. I have Dobbs at 55. I could definitely have Debo in that group.
That's what I have. 54, 55.
Here's a player I have above Debo. Trey Harris.
Ooh, I got Trey Harris a little bit behind there.
Yeah,
I have Pat Bryant right behind there though. I have Harris even behind Bryant. Pat Bryant is a rocket ship. Anyway, before we give away all of our ranks, just randomly, the Niners we just talked about, the Puka thing we talked
That's
about.
Everyone Carson from my end. Yeah,
Carson Beck, I was pumped about as well. I talked about this a bit on Bananas yesterday, but I was surprised about the actual physical throwing. I was excited that they played with some tempo with him in there. Like Mike LaFleur was excited to get him like actually moving a little bit, and then I felt like he had command over the playbook and like the line of scrimmage. He called at least one audible, and everyone was locked in. There was a spot low in the play clock where a guy didn't go in motion, and he very demonstrably and very quickly like stepped back and made sure that guy got moving. Because there was like 5 on the play clock, and they like would have either otherwise needed to take a timeout or potential delay a game. Maybe most quarterbacks, are aware enough to do that. I was saying on Bananas that maybe sometimes that makes them question themselves. Like that, I felt like that was a clear like I know exactly what I should be seeing when I call for a motion. That guy should be going. Like let's go. Did it with like no hesitation. That kind of a thing. I took as a positive about Beck, but also about LaFleur, the haircut has been a concern for me, but now I'm like, maybe he's communicating his offense well enough if he's got a rookie playing like with some command of the playbook and the offense in his first game, even if it is a Hall of Fame game against stripped down defenses and a very base level offense. Like and then in addition to him throwing on time and knowing where to go with the ball and completing so many passes, and the stat sheet looked great. I think optimism for Arizona's offense I took out of that game, even though it was the Hall of Fame game. I mean, that tempo stuff, everything. It's like, man, all right, maybe Mike LaFleur, little brother, knows what he's doing a little bit. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the natural take from a lot of people is LOL Hall of Fame game. It doesn't matter. It's preseason. And, like, there's truth to that. I'm not enshrining Carson Beck and Canton just yet. But I was legitimately impressed. Everything you mentioned to me makes sense. This is a guy who started 43 games in college at top flight programs, right? He played at Georgia, he played at Miami, he was in national championship contention basically every game he was starting. Does not actually shock me that much that he's a guy who has an easier time adjusting to those things than, frankly, guys drafted way higher than him, right? I mean, this is a guy that started a ton of meaningful games at a really high level with really top tier coaching. What did surprise me in the most positive way is this is a guy who once upon a time was viewed as a round one talent, who tore his UCL in college and, in my opinion, never really recovered from it. The velocity outside the numbers, I thought, dropped off dramatically after that injury, and he was just not the same guy at all at Miami last year. I thought he showed way more zip on the football physically than he showed at any point in Miami last year. So, like, that to me is real. Like, that's just, like, can you throw the football really hard? And I thought he did repeatedly in that game in a way that I didn't think he was physically capable of doing anymore since that elbow injury. So, if that's coming back, then, like, yeah, maybe this is like I mean, he was a guy that went at the top of round 3 that a lot of people thought was laughable. And I'm not saying he'd be a day one guy. There's other issues with Beck, but it would make way more sense to me if you have the physical profile back in this guy that I thought we had like 2 years ago in college when he was considered a potential round 1 guy. And, I'm not necessarily like leaping out to draft Carson Beck, but this is a team that has a lot of very highly drafted skill players, despite, being viewed as one of the worst teams in the league. And yeah, if you're drafting McBride, Love, Harrison, Wilson, it's really encouraging to see that the guy who's probably starting for them in the latter half of the year, that we might have some base competence out of. And maybe this is a guy that they can still call a pretty aggressive offense around and ask some more out of him. It's like, because what can you expect? Like, I think an optimistic comp would be, can this guy be rookie year Gardner Minshew, or rookie year even like Aiden O'Connell was like not very good, but he was able to funnel fantasy value to Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, and they passed a lot with him. What you don't want is like Brady Cook, or JJ McCarthy, or like guys who just completely make it impossible for anyone to do anything in fantasy. So yeah, not life-changing, but like I think it's actually real. I think it's actually more real than people seemingly were saying it was.
People, just for some context, Trey McBride going into last year had Kyler Murray as his quarterback and concerns about pass volume, concerns about TD rate, potential to score any touchdowns because he had never really been able to score any TDs with Kyler. And Marvin Harrison, still a lot more optimism about Marvin Harrison last year than there is right now. He was going in the 3rd, 4th round, and he was going on underdog last year. Trey McBride, 25th. He's going 29th right now because of Carson Beck, because everyone says late in the season Carson Beck's going to be the quarterback, and you can't have that. So he's going later this year than last year despite a season where, yes, I know he ran the most routes in tight end history, basically, in PFF's database by a lot. But he showed us an ability to score a lot of touchdowns. He now has a way better quarterback in Jacoby Brissett that he's starting with, and potentially a better backup quarterback in Carson Beck. Potentially a better offense situation, less competition if you understand the Harrison year 2, year 3 narrative shift to be favorable for Trey McBride, and just the fact that he established himself that much more as a superstar in that year. Like, I think he has more separation between him and the wide receivers. The fact that Trey McBride is going lower this year is wrong. It's just wrong. I mean, I'm not even like, I like playing Bowers and Colson Loveland more. It's wrong. It's a mistake by the market that undervalues Trey McBride's profile and skill set and what he actually is as a player. He's way too good to be going worse off of one of the greatest tight end seasons we've ever seen. People are like, they think Trey McBride is not as good as he is. It's a mistake that the market's made in the past. They're making it again right now. I feel strongly about that point. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on McBride? Or
I don't have any additional thoughts. I think that is true. I mean, that's the crux of the McBride thing. I think he's a great pick, and the only annoying thing is that I think that there's two arguably better picks at the tight end position, and it just makes it so hard to decide on who. But I think it's a great pick and a great call. I have the least reliable beat reporter of all time for this, which is Davis Maddock. So maybe this is completely wrong.
We are almost 3 hours in.
He just tweeted something that I think you're going to want to hear to end the program, which is that apparently Kamani Vidal playing in the preseason while Keaton Mitchell rests with the starters.
Nice.
Now that could be baseless because this is Davis. So this could be like Keaton Mitchell could come in 30 minutes, but like I wanted to hear it and I thought you would want to hear it.
I love hearing it. Our listeners love hearing it. I did want to go back to the Seahawks. Charbonnet ahead of schedule. I'm making bold claims at this point in the show. Zach Charbonnet is a horrendous redraft pick. Even if he's ahead of schedule, even if he misses PUP, even if whatever, you're missing. You're rostering him through missed time early in the season. There's the potential for a first-round running back to break out during that time, and in addition to that, he's never really been a special athlete. And when he comes back on a quicker timeline off an ACL, he tore his ACL in January, off a quicker timeline off an ACL than is expected traditionally. He may be not a shell of himself, but not as efficient as he was last year because he's never really been a special athlete. He doesn't have a whole lot to give back. He hasn't been rehabbing, or he's been rehabbing. He hasn't been training and being like at peak physical shape. When you're going to play a guy coming off an injury, like I want to play Malik Neighbors a little bit. Like Malik Neighbors is a superstar, elite athlete, elite talent, with talent to gain, where I think 80% Malik Neighbors can still be dominant at the NFL level. I don't think 80% Zach Charbonnet is even an NFL player. Like, he's too fringy. Like, I think that's... Yeah. So, I think, particularly in redraft, if you want to play him in best ball on these timeline stuff, I'm not great at best ball, whatever. Do what you want to do. Particularly in redraft, there's the possibility that he's good late in the season. It's a damaging thing to have a bench roster spot that you can't churn locked up for a play that's not even probably a high ceiling play. And by the time he returns, you may want to cut him anyway because Jadarian Price might be doing well enough that you're like, now I just have a backup. Like, just don't take him and manage. And that doesn't mean that he can't produce later. It's not a functionally smart play for how you have to manage your roster.
I totally agree with that. Everything you were saying, like, you're going to want to make waiver moves the first couple of weeks of the season. It's the best time to do it. You want to have guys that you take that are easy cuts. And if you take Charbonnet, you're attached to Charbonnet. You have to keep him on your roster while you wait for him to come back. Or you don't, in which case you just wasted a pick for nothing. And I'll also note, I just pulling up a tweet here from Jeff Muller, who does a lot of great injury stuff on Twitter. And this is a quote tweet of an Albert Breer report from a couple weeks ago that said that Charbonnet could be a potential close call to be ready for week 1. Mueller said, "This would be only 6 months to 25 days. The only way I see this being possible is if he had a repair versus a reconstruction. The reporting on that isn't fully clear. Returning that early after a reconstruction is not fully recommended." So anyways, I'll note that maybe there was something weird with the surgery, but
maybe it was a repair. I
am fully in agreement. Yeah. Anyways, but outside of that, I'm very much a very much in agreement on the thesis on that. And I've seen other people tweet about that I can't find right now, but I know that I've seen it saying that like that would be a bit of a risky procedure in terms of how well he would be able to return to form.
Okay, so if it was a repair, not a recovery, there's a concern that could...
If it was a repair rather than a reconstruction, you can return sooner, but the return to performance would be pretty volatile, and that it's possible he could return sooner but look like crap, basically, or get re-injured.
Got it.
Or
get re-injured. Got it.
Or be fine, but anyway, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I guess...
there'd be additional risk to returning beyond what you would have on a anyways, yeah.
But maybe that does... I mean, if he returns week 1, it refutes my point of, like, you don't want to have somebody... Like, then you are going to get early information.
I'm so bearish on that. Like,
it seems extremely bearish. But I was very, very firm about my take a minute ago. I'm at least acknowledging that I could be wrong. I'm still not going to draft Charbonnet. I still recommend you guys don't.
No,
either.
neither am I. I don't think he's in my redraft rankings.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'm good, man.
Great. Thanks for compiling all this.
Short view. We did only short view. We almost hit 3 hours. Jesus.
Well, I mean, you ended up with something for all 32 teams. I mean, this is a legit project. Thanks for compiling it all. It's great information.
Yeah. Do you feel like at the end of this show that we graduated from Opportunity Period University?
I do. It's good. Oh my God. Subscribe on Patreon. Listen to our stuff. We're going to do a draft stream soon. Any other promotional stuff you got?
Well, let's promote this. We both just released an article in The Athletic today. I didn't know that they were going to come out on the same day.
Same time,
but
same
they sure
day.
did. That was really fun. I wrote a Dynasty Market Principles article. What did you write about The Athletic today?
I wrote biggest lessons learned from my projections process. A lot of sort of technical Jonathan Taylor's routes and target stuff, the kind of things that the numbers that I normally shout at you guys on these podcasts. It's fun.
Yeah. So check us out in The Athletic. We're both going to be writing a bit in there for the rest of the season. Mine will be entirely Dynasty focused. So I'll have 2 more before the end of the offseason. I'm going to have a Sleepers article and a Sells article. And then I'll have some fun in-season Dynasty content. Probably on the rookie class. I'll have some like trade deadline strategy and stuff for buyers and sellers. So excited for that. If you are used to my work on Thinking About Thinking, you'll probably have a feel for how I do Dynasty content, but feel free to check a small sampling of it out in The Athletic. And of course, I'll still have all the writing that you're used to at Thinking About Thinking, and in fact, much more. I'm excited to announce kind of my in-season plan. But anything else you wanted to plug?
Fantastic. No, that's great. Thinking About Thinking, definitely go subscribe. You had your big draft strategy guide. Stealing Signals, I've got stuff out. I just wrote part 1 of my big strategy thing, and the responses are in. Let me give you a couple of the comments that came in today. Good read, but I got to say, Ben, I'm more confused about what to do strategically than before. This was definitely a get inside Ben's inner thoughts kind of piece, and not a here's what I think is best kind of piece. Thanks, Ben. This was really good. I'll say I don't always feel like I comprehend everything you write. Huh. So it's great. We're looking good. No, the first half of it was about understanding the 2026 fantasy football meta. It was very me trying to tie together a lot of the stuff that we've talked about with the different formational stuff, different like injury timeline stuff, a lot of different things that I've written about over the years. I think was going back and kind of reviewing stuff that actually won in 2025. I said that was part 1. The part 2 is going to be more of the actual, I got to let these guys know, but it's going to be more of the actual strategy and what to do that's coming. But I was just laughing at these comments. Anyway, I closed it by saying I didn't have a strong conclusion. So for the record, it wasn't intending to be super actionable. It was more of a foundational discussion of the 2026 fantasy football meta. But anyway, pretty
let us know in these
feedback.
Comments if what we said makes sense to you.
Yeah, let us know if everything we're saying makes absolutely no sense. What else? Subscribe on all the platforms and stuff, right? You got to do the plugs. You're the plug guy.
Yes. Like, subscribe, follow, etc. And Ben had mentioned off the top that we're going to do some draft episodes soon. I can't promise you exactly when those are going to release, but we definitely will be doing some in short order. So you will get those exclusively on the Patreon. And otherwise, we will see everyone back sometime soon for the next episode of The Long View.